everybody, and welcome to Roundtable Live for April 21st, 2017. I am BaerTaffy, joined by Mathis Games, Rockley Smile, and Northern Lion. And joining us for the very first time, developer of Tower of Guns and the upcoming Mothergunship, it's Joe Mirabello. How you doing, buddy? Oh, shoot, you're muted. Everybody's muted. No! No, we're back. Okay.
I was like, I heard him fine. I don't know what you're talking about.
Professional show. Welcome back, Joe.
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. Much better now. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. I'm happy to hang out with you guys. I know I told you before we started, I'm a fan of you guys, all of your work, and I appreciate the coverage you guys have done at Tower Guns in the past.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, we're all, oh man, it's a happy vibe in here, isn't it?
You know what? Thanks for making it.
Yeah, that's good.
Thanks.
Too. Mm-hmm.
It was fun to make. I had a good time making it.
Don't lie to us.
I had a terrible time making it. That whole thing was an experiment, man. The whole game.
Oh, God. Well, you know what? Take us right into that, actually, because that's a really interesting facet I didn't know about. It was an experiment? Tower of Guns?
Well, kind of, yeah. I mean, so I had worked for other studios, for larger AAA studios for a number of years, and I've drawn a bunch of games. And I worked most recently on a large MMO that was made by 38 Studios, or was being made by 38 Studios, and that company went out of business, like, disastrously.
Yeah.
I was just working as an artist, a tech artist, so I had nothing to do with the disaster.
Good God. I went to college, New England Tech.
Oh, yeah.
It was a couple classes before me, like, graduated and all got hired by, like, 38 Studios. Then a year later, they all are out of the job.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was a shame. There was a lot of people out of a job.
Yeah.
There was like 300 people at that studio at the end.
Wow.
But yeah, it was a big studio, and the project was pretty big. So after that, I was like, okay, I'm just going to sit back and do my own thing for a little while. I've done a lot of tech art stuff, but I've never made something start to finish game-wise on my own, and a lot of other developers were doing that. It seemed like it was fun and exciting. And so I was like, what will I make? The really weird first-person shooter with random stuff and weird random stories. And it was like kind of like just an experiment to see whether or not I could do it, how fast I could do it, whether or not people would like it, whether or not that kind of gameplay, which was kind of more bullet helly first-person shooter, was even fun.
Yeah.
So it was an experiment in a lot of things, and some of the experiments worked well and some of them didn't work well. Even like the idea of marketing it, I was kind of treating as like a lesson, like what can I learn from this? And I didn't actually expect it to be anything more than like, here, let's take a year off from working for other people and then go back to work for other people again.
Yeah.
And instead, it's been 4 years now, and I'm still independent, still making my own stuff. So it's exciting.
That is pretty reflective, I think, of many of our positions as far as how we've gotten to this point. You know, like 4 years ago, we were like, maybe we could make some videos on the internet. It might work out. And somehow we're still crawling along.
That's the brilliant thing about it. We all kind of interlocked in a way and found our own way through.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you guys, all four of you, seem like you also focused on covering the same types of games at the same time. So it kind of makes sense that you would all kind of like gravitate to each other as well.
Yeah, I like to believe that premise for this podcast makes sense too. So, speaking of the podcast, we are going to be doing a show today. Hey, what do you know? Sorry for missing last week. We're all on spring break of some sort or another. Ryan over in Japan, me with family, and Mathis wearing his Sailor Moon suit.
It's true.
Yep.
I was here.
Nick was here, yeah. I appreciate you being back with us here, though. We do have a docket today. Going to be talking mostly with Joe about his project, about Tower of Guns, what he's been doing with Mothergunship, and more just about you as well, man. I'm curious about the life of an indie, really what you've got going on. So I want to hear more about that.
I can tell you all about it.
Good.
It's a lot of staying at my desk all day long, working on stuff.
Amen.
We're familiar with that. We'll be talking a lot about Tower of Guns, about Mothergunship, of course, his upcoming project as well. Then we'll dive into more of a traditional docket. We'll be talking some of Twitch's upcoming changes, including the new affiliate program that they just announced today, which is a really big change, as well as their new subscription model and all kinds of fun stuff there. We're going to be talking about Slime Rancher, which Nick has been playing the hell out of, which has been around for a while, but we still have an excuse to talk about it because it's still in early access, right? So we got a free wild card there. Also, BioShock Infinite, which I know another one that's
brand new game, really new on the scene.
I wanted to do an oldie but a goodie for a little bit there too, so I want to talk about that as you've had a fresh experience with it. Brand new stuff though, Rick and Morty Virtual Rick-ality just came out yesterday, so I'm going to be talking in depth about that because believe it or not, I finished it since yesterday, so there's a little bit of a tell for you there as far as that's concerned.
Let me stop you there.
Uh-oh.
Believe it.
Believe it? Don't believe
Yes.
it. And then we'll be talking about Flinthook right at the tail end of the show as well, which most of us have played, so that's great. Let's go ahead and get back into it. Tower of Guns. For those who are uninitiated, Joe, please describe for them, what is Tower of Guns?
Tower of Guns is a randomized first-person shooter, bullet hell, roguelite-ish thing. First-person shooter that came out in 2014. I made it mostly as a one-person project, at least initially. I did gradually kind of katamari my way into getting help for all as development went along. But initially, it was just me. And then it came out 2014 on Steam, on PC, and then pushed to consoles with the help of a developer named Grip Digital. So that was Xbox and PS4 and PS3. And that was like 18 months ago. So it's also been in quite a few different Humble Bundles. It's been in a big PS Plus deal. It's gone out to quite a few people at this point have downloaded it. I was expecting it to maybe, like I said earlier, it was an experiment. And I was expecting to be like, maybe it'll sell a few thousand copies. It'll be fun. And then I'll go back to working for another studio again. And instead it's wound up in, all told, millions of hands, which is pretty crazy to me.
That's awesome.
So
That's awesome.
yeah, I mean, when you add in all the console stuff, it adds up quick. It's been exciting. It's been a really cool road, and it's never a place that I thought that game would get to because of how loose I was with its development. So now, working on Mothergunship, you can see my poster back there. It's me basically taking a very similar idea, taking the Tower Guns things, the experiments that worked well, and really refining them, like saying, like, okay, what worked well? What can we refine? Spend a little more time on? Spend more polish on? What can we take out of it? And what can we abandon? Things that didn't work so well. So it's a lot of applying those lessons and making something that I feel stands up, but people who like Tower Guns will still like, but also as a game that new people will like as well.
Mm-hmm.
So.
On the description page, you kind of wear your inspirations on your sleeve. You mentioned it's a bit of a mix of Isaac with Doom 2, and
oh yeah, absolutely, Tower Guns.
Mm-hmm,
It was I was playing a lot of Doom 1 and Doom 2 again. I play a lot of retro games now that I think about it. I go back and play a lot of old games from my youth, and a lot of them don't hold up very well. But Doom and Doom 2 both hold up amazingly.
Yeah.
It's the movement, the combat, the core loop holds up really well, and I want to try and capture that kind of franticness, like big rooms, lots of places to explore, lots of surprises, trying to keep the player off guard as much as I could. But Isaac, of course, was also, 2014, 2013, that would have been right when the first Flash version of Isaac came out, and it took the indie world by storm. Like, everyone was like, this is great, the idea of mixing Zelda dungeons with a roguelite, and it got a lot of developers thinking, like, what else can be mixed with the roguelike formula? And so you put a bunch of developers in a room, give them a game like Isaac, and you're going to inspire some people.
So were you having conversations back in 2014? Were you in a lot of circles of devs talking about what Isaac was doing to the scene? And were you like in the moment with that, or was that sort of a realization that you made after the fact?
It was yes and no. This would have probably been 2012 because we'd have to go back 18 months because of working on it. So 2012ish, it was more so I was like playing a lot of Isaac, and I realized I was taking screenshots of my characters, and I was like having like these unique adventures every time I played, and me realizing that was fun, but then also really wanting to work on a first-person shooter and being able to like kind of see how I could marry the two together. And now I had never done any large-scale programming before, so I was trying to be very cautious about how I developed the approach of Tower Guns, and I started to think about ways that I could kind of develop something with the skill set I had, knowing what I could make on my own, that still satisfied as much as I could of that itch.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, it's not Isaac. Isaac is a fantastic, like as near masterpiece as you get when it comes to indie games.
Don't you even dare try to suggest in the presence of this man.
But I felt like I learned a lot from it, and I also feel like I did a pretty good job for Tower Guns. I was very happy with how it came out and the reception of it.
Yeah.
So
that blows my mind that you went into that just with that level of ambition, going, I don't really have much large scale programming knowledge. We're going to make a randomly generated first person shooter. Like, that is huge to me.
Well, you actually played a lot of Tower Guns. You did a whole bunch of series on it, or videos on it. And did you ever realize that it's not Like, I mean,
It's-
obviously, you know that you saw the same
it's-
room over and over again,
Stitched together prefab rooms, right?
except it's not. It's actually like a slot machine where each slot
Oh.
has a series of rooms that can spawn.
Okay,
Please,
so it's
please.
groups that are prefab, not single
Right.
rooms. Gotcha.
Yes, which is really lame, and that's obviously something that is not an issue in Mothergunship anymore. And Mothergunship is much more dynamically randomly composited. Still a lot of hand-built stuff because people actually really responded to that. Like, this was something I thought people were going to crucify me for because it's not as well. Yeah, nobody noticed. Like, it's crazy the amount of stuff that developers are afraid of when, I felt like players are going to be really upset about,
Yeah.
or not upset, but I thought they were going to be like, nah, this is lame. But, like, you played it for a ton and you never noticed. It makes me feel very happy.
Not to like put you on the spot here, but what other things were you worried about? What other things did you think people would call you out for during the launch?
Honestly, we can talk about the bad stuff for Tower Guns, and then I'll give a bunch of keys to the
Yeah, there
chat
you
for
go,
free.
exactly.
Actually, the art was very rushed for Tower Guns. Now,
Mm.
I was taking the attitude of I've got to get this done. I'm the only person working on it. I've got to do what I can to get it. Like, I was taking very much a game jam approach.
Yeah.
It was just like a 20-month long game jam, and it was like, okay, I can't afford to spend time on the art, and so I spent for the entire game. All of the artwork was probably done in about 4 weeks, maybe 3 weeks.
Wow.
And there was a lot of it was done in my sketchbook
Yeah.
because, like, actually hand-drawn textures.
Mhm.
Because then I could actually hang out with my wife and see her a little bit. So we'd like watch TV and I'd draw textures. But it was like, yeah, I thought that people weren't going to like the art, and there were actually a lot of complaints about the visuals because it was fairly stylistically borrowed from Borderlands, I guess, but it was also very quick to make. I mean, that artwork was very, very speedy, and I was
It's
able
all
to do
you?
a couple of. All of the artwork was me, except let me think about that. When we got to the console version, I had a little bit of help with some of the like marketing pieces and stuff, if I recall correctly,
Okay,
like putting together some stuff. There's probably something I'm forgetting too. But yeah, all of the art was me. All of the programming, all of the effects, all of the animation. There was some sound stuff that was done by some other people, and then there was music was done by my brother Mike.
Mm-hmm. Oh
So-
yeah, that the other credit here is by a guy named Joe with his brother in
Yes.
parentheses.
But then I should clarify though that like as development went on, by the time I released, I had a bunch of playtesters who were helping me too. They were like volunteers and friends and family, and so without them, the game would not have been nearly as sturdy as it was. And then after launch, even more people were helping out playtesting and stuff, and then Grip got involved and helped me port it. Actually, another company helped me port it to Mac and Linux, a company called Minority Media. And then Grip helped me port it to Xbox and PlayStation. And then now Grip and I are continuing to work together because they're my co-developers for Mothergunship. And yeah, it's like, so I made Tower Guns on my own and kind of proved out the gameplay and proved out the idea that, okay, there's something interesting here.
Right.
And then Grip and I have now, from the ground up, building Mothergunship together as co-developers. So like, I have coworkers now, which is cool.
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
actually have like, it's not all on me anymore. So now I can actually focus on the art and focus on making stuff look pretty, or focus on design parts and stuff. And I don't need to just feel like I'm scrambling through the entire thing. Instead, it's like, okay, let's really make this thing feel good.
I'm interested actually for the slot machine approach to room generation. Was that just to simplify like the procedural generation so that all the rooms are like a standardized quality of like fun, or was it for like map linkage so you'd actually have like intersections that were guaranteed and like architecture that was standardized?
It was a little bit of, well, okay, so it was because it was a method I knew about how I given my skill set. I have to back up a little bit here.
Yeah.
Given my skill set going into this, I was very fast at building rooms because of the experience I'd had back at various studios. I was very fast at making art, and I was very fast at laying out scenes and places, basically. And so I knew I could churn through a bunch of rooms, and I did not know if I could generate, if I could stitch them together randomly, or if I could actually have randomly composited elements over top. By the end of the project, I knew enough that I could have done that. But at the beginning of the project, I didn't have any coding experience at all other than some light material coding, shader coding and stuff. So this was literally, well, that's not true. I had taken some coding classes in high school, but that's like 20 years ago. But this was like the biggest and first like real project I had done start to finish code-wise. And so the reason that I went with that method of slot machine style was because it was something I knew I could get done very simply, and I offloaded the work on the skill sets I knew I had, which was the level design skill sets. So by the end of the project, I had developed enough skills that I could have gone back in and rewritten a lot of stuff and made it much more interesting, much more dynamic. But at that point, I was like, this needs to be out. I'd been working on it a long time, and I was ready to well, quote unquote, end the experiment.
Yeah, sure.
It just ended up having a life a lot longer after that. Still.
It kind of strikes me there's maybe a little bit of a parallel in the development process between Tower of Guns and Mothergunship, and the sort of a link between Binding of Isaac and Binding of Isaac Rebirth, that there's sort of like a proven concept, and then you kind of start fresh, bring in another person, redo the art, and then kind of refine the main core gameplay loop.
Well, I will take that compliment. I will definitely take that compliment. And I will say, though, that also Mothergunship is definitely a refinement in a lot of ways, not just the core loop or the gameplay, but there's a lot of other stuff that we're doing in there that is stuff that Tower Guns never even touched on. I mean, there's a reason that we're not calling it Tower Guns 2.
Yeah.
Because it's not. It really is its own brand. And I mean, a good example would be taking things the community really wanted to see from Tower Guns, but were never able to be implemented. Like Tower Guns, the number one thing people wanted was co-op. Like people wanted to run around these crazy rooms with a friend. And in Mothergunship, we're like, okay, now we're planning this from the beginning. Let's plan for co-op from the beginning.
Online co-op?
Yeah. So it's like in Tower Guns, I hadn't planned that from the beginning, and there was no way I was going to be able to inject that later. That would have been quicker to rewrite the project, honestly.
Yeah.
But Mothergunship, it is from the ground up. So that's something we're focusing on as a first, what would you call it? A priority feature, if you will.
Sure.
Another thing is
the LSS just now, I think. Maybe.
Yeah, actually, like not to get into the minutia too much, but we deal with this so much from like a streamer focused side where we know logically you don't just tick a box, as much as we joke about it.
Yeah.
That, like enables online, but what is like from an abstracted like layman's perspective, like what's the difference? If you wanted to add online co-op later, like why do you have to rewrite the whole project instead of just adding in like another function?
How hard is it really, Joe? Come on.
Explain it.
Let's think about everything that's in your game needing to be done twice.
Yeah.
First off, but needs to be synced between the two, and needs to have authority. So a good example would be the bullets in Tower of Guns. All those hundreds and hundreds of bullets. So each bullet needs to be able to be basically pulled about whether or not it's hit something. Needs to be pulled whether or not it's actually been launched, where it's going, who it's aiming after, whether or not it's going to hit something, when it does hit something, all at a high enough latency, or I guess a low enough latency that the player doesn't notice any kind of lags.
Right.
It's basically the idea of replication is something you have to build from the ground up if you want to make sure that it's 1, sturdy, 2, fast, and 3 is actually has, I guess you would say, the correct authority, because you want to make sure that the players can't cheat each other also. Otherwise, you can end up with... That's why you see like rubber banding in games, because that's the authority taking over and saying, that's not where that guy actually is. He's actually over here. And it like pops him back. In order to do that stuff well, you can't really do it after the fact, unless you've been kind of quasi-planning for it the whole way. Definitely not the way I was doing Tower of Guns. So that's just from a tech side standpoint. Now you have the other problems of, from the art standpoint, Tower of Guns, you never had a player model. You have to build a player model. You actually have something to look at. You actually have to have
that's funny
animations
to think
for those
now,
things.
Looking at it, there's nothing behind the gun, right? There's
Tower
no
Guns,
character
no,
there.
there's not.
That's
No.
funny.
And actually, in most first-person shooters, there isn't.
There isn't,
You would
really?
have arms, and that was it. You may have the arms. What they do instead is they'll have 2 different versions of the model, a third-person mesh and a first-person mesh.
Yeah.
But I don't know, with like, I feel like they're getting more and more away from that in later first-person shooters, where you can like look down and see your feet and stuff. But
I'm super used to in Unity, you look and you see there's just like a pill. It's like the shape of a dome.
Yeah, a capsule.
Yeah, the capsule. That's always what it is.
It's replication. Sorry, like multiplayer is pretty complicated, and if you think about wanting to have replication really fast with a game with a lot of stuff moving,
Right.
you fake a lot of it. Like even in the most highest tier AAA games, they're still faking a lot. Like they don't simulate every bullet every frame. What they do is they say, okay, all the bullets have started here. We're going to let them go, and soon they hit something that's in the same place as what is on the server. And if not, then we'll rubber band it and fix it. And so there's a lot of like course correction along the way. So not being a programmer, because I still don't consider myself a programmer, it's nice not to have to worry about these things. Instead, I have coworkers now, and I can let them be the ones who stress out about replication. But it is not a trivial thing, unfortunately.
You could probably give yourself basically any job title you wanted, at least in relation to the programming of Tower of Guns, right? Like you more or less have hit everything now.
So, well, I've hit almost everything except there are some things that I know I'm not great at. And programming, I learned a lot, and I definitely got a lot better. And I know now that I know enough to at least be able to talk about how certain systems interact, but only gameplay systems. The second you start getting into rendering or replication or like collision or physics, those are systems that are deeply complicated, and I wouldn't touch those things. I wouldn't go anywhere near any of them because they're a house of cards, man. You start messing with one thing, you break everything. So, I would not consider myself to be a real programmer, but I would say at this point I'm a competent scripter.
That's good.
But yeah, I mean, that's coming from my background. I started out as an artist and then gradually got more and more technical. So I guess it's par for course for the direction I've been heading with my skill set.
Yeah, let me hear more about your background, actually. So take it in the time machine all the way back. So what gave you like your start with all this stuff?
Probably modding levels for like Dark Forces and Quake and not Quake, but Half-Life and Dark Forces. I had a lot of fun making levels. What was that?
I did a lot of Doom stuff myself. Doom Marathon, Duke Nukem, little Half-Life.
I didn't have the full version of Doom, so I couldn't mess with those ones. But I had Dark Forces, and Dark Forces had a lot of fun mods up to it and a lot of custom levels that were really good. And then I kind of got into the game art scene because I thought that was the only way you could get a job in games. I didn't realize you could do design. And so I started doing just game art. And I got my first job at Iron Lore, which was a company that made a game called Titan Quest. And I did almost every weapon in Titan Quest.
Wow.
It was like something like 500 weapons in that game. Maybe there was like 600, and I did like 450 of them or something like that.
Titan Quest, is that Diablo-esque game? I can't remember.
Yep. Yeah, it came out about 10 years ago maybe at this point, maybe 11, 12 years ago.
That game.
It was fun. That was a great studio to work for.
Yeah.
And then I worked on a couple of indie games like before, quote-unquote, the indie revolution. Also action RPGs. And those I just did a couple of monsters for. I did the expansion quest for Titan Quest, the expansion pack for Titan Quest. I worked on that, doing a lot more character stuff as well as some environment stuff. And then I went over to 38 Studios, where I was there almost from the very beginning. I thought that I was going to go there for like 3 months and kind of see how this felt, because the studio, I don't know if you guys know the history of that studio.
Not really.
More or less.
More or less. All right, well, to give the viewers a quick recap,
help me
it was
out.
a studio.
I'm the ignorant one here, the host of the show.
It was a studio founded by Kurt Schilling, the pitcher, Todd McFarlane, the comic book artist, and Bob Salvatore, the novelist.
Okay.
The guy who did the Dritz Dwarden novels. Dwarden? I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. But I was working at Iron Lore, and I was feeling like I was ready to move on to my next company. Iron Lore was a great studio, but I was like ready to like kind of move on to a bigger studio. And then this studio opened up 3 doors down, same office complex. And my thinking was originally I was going to be like, I'm going to go out west. I'm going to leave the East Coast and try out a West Coast studio. But I just started dating a girl. And so I was like, oh, maybe we'll see where this goes. And so I was like, well, let's see how this other studio goes too at the same time. I have no idea who this Red Sox pitcher is, but I like Todd McFarlane. Maybe I'll get to meet him.
Yeah.
That's literally what I was thinking. I'm not a baseball fan, so.
Sure.
But you don't know about the bloody sock?
I do now.
Oh, wait, hold on. What is this?
Kurt was basically bleeding from his leg during one of the World Series games and just kept on playing through. And it became kind of a local legend here in the Boston area. I think that the sock is still on display or something. I don't know.
I thought, like, in the tragic, like, flash forward, I thought he had to sell it to cover like some of the liens.
Oh God!
That were issued by the Rhode Island government.
The tragic fast forward is he put the state of Rhode Island in millions of dollars of
debt.
Oh my
God!
Wow.
Yes. No, actually, it's not the state of... Well, okay, we can get into that if you want to, but that's a long story. I don't know the details
as long
too
as you're
much,
safe. I
but-
don't want to... If you're going to be hunted down by former 38 Studios heads, I don't want to put you in any danger here, but...
Well, I can say that there was two tiers of things that going on there. There's the development side and development down, and that's where I was. And we were just plucking away doing our thing. And then there was the management up, and they were trying to secure funding and trying to get the studio basically keep 300 people employed.
Yeah.
Well, it was much smaller before we took the Rhode Island loan. We took a loan to move to Rhode Island, and I do believe that there was nothing but honest intentions in terms of moving the company to Rhode Island, getting people working there, and for a while things seemed like they were doing very well. But I do not think that you could blame entirely the studio for the collapse of things. I do feel like there was some shady stuff going on the part of Rhode Island as well.
That doesn't surprise me. Rhode Island's a shady state. Listen, I lived there for like 19 years. Rhode Island was an interesting place.
It's so easy to throw shade at Rhode Island, though. Like, what are they going to do?
Yeah, that's true.
I don't really know very much about the details. I've kind of kept myself out of a lot of those details. That way I don't have to explain it to family. But I do know that it sucked all around. There was, when that studio closed, there were people who got stuck with 2 mortgages because they thought that they had sold their house and they hadn't because the company had helped them sell. It was weird situations.
Man.
And I felt very lucky that I got through it as unscathed as I did. It's I was still working there. So to go back a little bit, I kept working there. And I kept dating that girl, and then eventually we got married. That lady and I. Now we have a kid, and it's 3 months. I thought it was gonna be a 3 month kind of exploration at that studio to see what it was like. Ended up being 5 years, and then that studio closed. And I had been saving up money with the idea of maybe going indie, trying this indie thing for a year, and I just kept on with it. And so I can't complain. The studio closing is what pushed me to go indie, and so. Right. For some people, it was a terrible situation. They got stuck in with these crazy mortgages they had to pay. They got stuck in bankruptcy. One person lost their health insurance the day before their kid was supposed to be born.
Oh, jeez.
I mean, there were some rough situations, and I feel like it was one of the best things that's happened to me. It feels terrible for me to say that because it's pushed me this direction, but I felt like it pushed me to become an indie developer. And I did learn a lot from that studio too. I mean, I grew from being a junior artist to being a senior artist because of that studio, because we really had put together a good pipeline, especially in the environment team where I was, to create content professionally and quickly. So I have nothing but a lot of respect for all of the co-developers I was working with.
I remember when Amalur launched, how big of a thing it was. I remember seeing Todd McFarlane on a ton of different streams. I remember day 9 doing 3 days straight of Amalur with I don't know if it was Todd McFarlane. I don't think it was. Maybe R.A. Salvatore was on the stream and stuff. And people were so pumped for that game. And then it was the bad news came shortly thereafter.
So there was Reckoning that came out, and then there was the MMO, and I was on the MMO team. So Bob Salvatore is a really cool guy, by the way. He's a really nice guy. So
Bear, you may not know who he is, but he has a lot to do with the world that we're playing in D&D. He created a ton of Faerun.
Really? Oh,
yeah,
wow.
He's a lot of the reason Faerun is the way it is. Dritz Duwarden, as he was saying, is a main character in that world.
That's awesome.
You will never meet a nicer author. He's a super cool guy and just a good guy to get into conversations with or arguments with. He's just a good guy all around.
Sweet.
Nothing but high respect for Bob Salvatore.
What were we? Sorry, we got sidetracked there, didn't we? Before Mr. Salvatore.
We were talking about Amalur, and he was on the MMO
That's
side.
right.
Of things.
Yep.
Yeah. So then I went and did Tower Guns after that, and it's like that studio was for all of the shadiness of how it ended up closing in the last month and all the drama.
Yeah.
There was a month of drama at the end and 5 years of
Good
an incredibly enriching experience as an artist. I learned a ton. And I worked with some amazing artists, and I feel like if it had continued on, that studio would have been a really interesting place to work for years and years. So
I didn't
that was
realize.
actually where I went to New England Tech for initially. I was like, oh, maybe I'll check out 38 Studios because I was going for game development at the time. And it sucks that the MMO closed down because I'm always interested in a new and exciting MMO, and never really got to see anything of it. But
There's a couple of leaked things that you can find
a
on
couple
YouTube.
like flyovers, I think, of like some areas and stuff.
There's some pretty tech we were showing off, some pretty zones. There was, I don't know whether or not I can actually talk about it, so I shouldn't talk about the specifics of the project because a lot of it,
Of course, yeah.
I don't know, a lot of it is like boxed up Indiana Jones style in some warehouse now. I don't know. But it's. I will say that it was fun to work on, and I learned a lot. And I think that if you were to look at other MMOs that have come out since then, the one that actually reminds me the closest of it was probably, at least visually, even though it's sci-fi, would be WildStar. WildStar felt like it had a very similar kind of vein going for it. Well, and maybe that's because they ended up hiring a whole bunch of the 38 people when 38 closed. But yeah. Now, I haven't played WildStar other than like 10 minutes at a trade show, and I was like, yeah, this feels similar. It's like a WoW-ish kind of thing. I don't know whether or not the world could support another WoW-type MMO in 2012.
Yeah.
But when it was going to
WildStar was another game.
What was that?
WildStar was another game that just came out with the big bang. People were like, oh, this is great. Everybody blasted their way to Endgame, and then there was nothing at Endgame. It was like, well, like, I'm done.
Every MMO now.
I know.
Goes through, like Black Desert Online went through the same thing, and like Terra went through the same thing. Like for the first 20 hours of an MMO, everyone's like, "This is it," and then they all kind of like
the end game.
Yeah,
that's why I think Final
Fantasy 14.
Well, Final Fantasy came out with the. They had to make their second launch, their relaunch, like knock it out of the park, and they did. They had a ton of endgame stuff right out the gate, and I think that's one of the reasons it's held so strong. And their expansions are always huge, and they add so much to the game. I always think, like, if you're not playing WoW, you should be playing Final Fantasy 14 because it's like the other MMO that does it right.
So, well, with Amalur, they were planning a lot of endgame stuff. We hadn't gotten around to building any of it. But the one thing I will say to the designers' credits there is that there were a lot of designers who came from EverQuest, EverQuest 2, and a few people from WoW as well. And they were very focused on trying to make the endgame. They were aware of the endgame problem. So that was at least encouraging. But I also just don't know. When the studio closed in 2012, it was a pretty tough climate for MMOs. I think anything these days to compete with WoW, you're talking about a game that has a decade of extra content built on top. Yeah, that's not an easy thing to compete with. Even if you do have 300 people and 5 years, it's like, that's a lot of stuff to compete with. Because WoW has 3,000 people and 10 years.
Yeah,
and Blizzard,
and Blizzard and Blizzard money. Yeah, and I mean, I think Legion in its most recent expansion took a lot of lessons from what other MMOs tried to do and implemented them into WoW, and they did an excellent job. I think Legion is probably the best expansion WoW has seen in a long time.
The Legion team, there's a lot of X38 people on that team. A lot. Because Blizzard hired a bunch of them because there were people who had learned a lot about making MMOs.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
And so the Legion and then the one right before that were both a lot of 38 people. I don't know how many people, because I know how many people are there, but I don't know how big percentages of the team, because I don't know how big the team is. But I will say that there were, like dozen, or maybe a few dozen, maybe 1 or 2 dozen.
38.
38
Exactly.
Estimation.
A lot of people went to Blizzard afterwards, or in the years afterwards. A lot of people went to Carbine with WildStar. A lot of people went to what was the one? Factor 5 or Red Factor? I can't remember.
Those both sound like studios to me.
I can't remember the name of the game right now, but it was another MMO-ish, but a little more action-oriented. A lot of people went there as well. So I don't know. That studio, split apart, and everybody was, well, not everybody, but a lot of people got hired right away because there was a lot of talent there.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
But anyway, we don't need to reminisce about 38.
Oh, no, it's fine. That was great.
Factor. Oh, the people who did Firefall, right?
Yes, Firefall. Thank you so much, Firefall. A lot of Firefall people went there. Or a lot of people went to Firefall, rather.
I just lifted this little nugget from the wiki page. Apparently, Bob Salvatore created over 10,000 years of backstory for the Amalur.
Yes.
What?
There's a book Scott has, which that should not surprise you, that is like the grand history of the realm, which is all the history of Faerun and the gods and their lives and death. Is crazy.
That's wild.
But 10,000 years is like longer than the Earth has even been around.
Yeah.
Like, that's incredible.
That is insane.
That one man could do this.
He just grew day by day, each day of every year.
Did that man, like, was he just telling stories all day, every day, Joe? Did you get to hang around with him much?
I did. Actually, I got to hang around with him a decent amount. He was a cool guy. So he did quite a bit of work on the history, but it wasn't like every day. It was more so like outlining things falling and rising, because there were a bunch of different eras in the world, and like Reckoning took place in one era, and the MMO was going to take place in another era. So it's not like it was granular detail. But there was segments of granular detail. He was working on a lot of short stories that they were planning on using for marketing purposes. And they were pretty fun. So he had done a lot of work on that project, and I don't think that I think it's kind of sad that a lot of the world won't get to see the stuff he did, or that any of us did. But yeah, he was a cool guy to hang out with. And his kid actually was working at 38 Studios too. They picked him up as a designer, Brian Salvatore, and he was fantastic. Also, he was great to work with as well. So. He came in junior and was doing very good work. And I remember getting into long conversations and arguments with him about Oblivion versus Morrowind.
Oh, wow.
Which was better.
Which side of the fence are you on there?
I'm on the Morrowind side.
Oh, okay.
It's a good call, my friend.
Yeah, I think that's the only actual answer, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, you could argue that Oblivion is a better made game because it's the same systems evolved, but then Morrowind's world building is so much more interesting than Oblivion's world building.
Yeah,
so.
I can tell you've definitely had this conversation at length, Joe.
Are you gonna be? I doubt it, but are you gonna check out the Morrowind expansion for Elder Scrolls Online?
I'm tempted to. I checked out the Morrowind expansion for Skyrim.
Yeah.
It was like one of the islands was Vardenfall. I can't remember which island it was, but I was actually disappointed in that. Mostly because it didn't give me like the level of surprise that I wanted. So I don't know. I've got some friends working on the Elder Scrolls MMO, but I've yet to play it. And maybe I should. I'm just afraid to get sucked into MMO worlds again. Once you've worked on a genre, it's like you don't want to go play that genre as much.
I was told the Elder Scrolls MMO is starting to pick up pace here, starting to
I've heard and read the same thing. Like the game has improved drastically over the years, and the Morrowind expansion is like a 1-to-1 recreation of the Morrowind world. So
maybe then it's something I should dive into, because I really did like the Morrowind world a lot. I consumed a lot of bags of pretzel sticks while playing through that.
A question I had a little while ago I wanted to bring up again. I think it's pretty easy to assume that a lot of the things you learned at 38 you applied in your development of Tower of Guns, right? In the actual process of creating the game and making it. As far as like releasing the game and finishing it and getting through all those things at the end that make actually finishing a game so hard, did you learn anything from 38 that helped you to do that, or did you just sort of have to figure that out for yourself?
Yeah, actually. I mean, I would say it's kind of hard to apply that stuff abstractly, but treating the product as a living thing was one of those things that I was very good at with Tower of Guns. I was trying to make sure that as I released it, I was handing it off to people who were external to look at it frequently. And so it was very private at first, closed friends and family, and then gradually I opened up more and more, and then YouTubers began finding it, and then more and more, I guess you'd say, not really early access, because it wasn't early access in those days, but it was just kind of, I guess it was early access, just not Steam. But it was kind of like, I never really advertised it, but more and more people kind of came into the playtest or started buying the pre-order and getting the early builds, and maintaining that cadence of having a public product was good. And I feel like that's something that helped me finish it, because I had a little bit of a pressure from public to actually give them something. I had a pressure from them to keep the build working the entire time. And then also I had pressure to deliver, I guess you would say, measurable progress with each step. And all of those things were things that I learned from 38, because 38 had it took a couple of years for it to kind of get refined, but 38 had a very good and similar pipeline in place by the end of us delivering content. And we were showing it to each other, but like each individual team was doing a very good job about trying to keep that kind of flow. So that's more of a pipeline kind of process. But even from the art standpoint, there was a lot of tricks and tech things that I learned, and different skills that I picked up that I could apply directly to scripting, or to the effects, or to the art, or to the level design. Basically, I was working at the very end of 38 Studios' I guess, life, I was working on dungeon pieces, which were like modular Lego pieces, basically building them out so that people could quickly build dungeons. Those pieces were constructed in such a way that they could be placed very quickly, and you could build out entire rooms with them very fast. And those gave me the ideas for how to build sci-fi pieces for Tower of Guns. It's like a very similar set of Legos. Like once you kind of learn what Legos work, you can rinse and repeat it and create new kinds of art using the same ideas for the Legos. And that's why a lot of the pieces, a lot of the rooms in Tower of Guns were able to be built so quickly, is because I had a lot of experience building Lego pieces, if you will.
Right. Awesome. Good stuff. So let's then talk about Mothergunship.
Sure.
So give me the quick Steam page breakdown of this one as well.
You want me to hop over to the Steam page and pull up
just
the
go ahead and read it verbatim for you.
No, it's so Mothergunship is basically a follow-up to Tower of Guns, but completely new world, completely new franchise. It's built from the ground up to address all of the things that did well on Tower of Guns and capitalize on that, and as well as trim away the fat and insert it with new and exciting things. So it has the same kind of randomization, but way more sophisticated now. Not quite as hacked together as Tower of Guns was regarding its randomization. But it still has a level of handcraftedness. The rooms are still hand built with like extra content on top of it, layered content of randomization, and then a few extra surprises on top of that. Because the team is larger now, there's a much larger scope of content too. So a lot more replayability, a lot more things to throw at the player. Similar kind of bullet hell gameplay, where the player is always faced with an alarming number of enemies, an alarming number of projectiles, and a alarmingly large bosses. And then also the game features a very unique crafting system. So, in Tower of Guns, I was pretty over the top and pretty crazy. Mothergunship is similarly over the top, pretty crazy. And I wanted the player to be able to craft a gun that was similar, let them have the craziness in their own hands. So it's actually a very modular gun crafting system. You basically can stitch 30 barrels across the bottom of the screen and have a gun that shoots like 30 bullets at once if you want to. I really let it go crazy.
I'm so in.
You can so you have those 30 barrels, you can strap like a spread modifier to them, now they're all shotguns or something. So
important question.
Yeah.
Are there or will there be railguns?
There is a laser kind of railgun now. That's I don't know why not. Yeah.
Okay. Railguns are the superior method of fire in all first-person shooters, so it's just something I prefer myself.
So did you like the crossbow in Tower of Guns then? I think that was the closest to a railgun I
Crossbows
had.
are pretty close, yeah. If they leave like a little corkscrew behind them, like a contrail, I could get into that.
Yeah, that's what the crossbow did in Tower of Guns, I think. So that kind of stuff is the system. The modular system in Mothergunship is pretty bonkers. You can do some really crazy things with it. Like you can actually like graft barrels that go all the way across the bottom of the screen, all the way up the sides, all the way across the top.
Oh my god!
We have guns that we've created that we call the window, and it was quite literally a window of barrels. But every time you add a piece,
My soul.
every time you add a piece to your gun, it costs a little bit more to fire, and so you have a rechargeable meter. So you could build that crazy gun. You may only be able to fire it once. So to back up a little bit, though, and give you a little bit of an idea of the story of Mothergunship, the Earth has basically been taken over by data-hoarding, kleptomaniac alien robots. And it's your job as one of the last members of the Resistance to liberate Earth by destroying their armada, one ship at a time. Each ship is a randomly generated level and designed to be played in a lunch break type session, similar to Tower Guns that was designed to be played in like a lunch break experience. This is designed to be played very short bursts, and each ship is its own mission, if you will. And then you're working your way through these missions to the final ship, the Mothergunship itself. Along the way, you get like daily challenge missions, co-op special missions, endless missions, nightmare missions, all sorts of. We can do a lot of crazy things with the way we arrange missions, so that the player is constantly surprised with what they will be facing, and the way that we're building it is actually very expandable too. So like as we are developing the game, we're able to very quickly find a lot of new fun things and kind of incorporate those things into design very nicely. But it's taking what worked well in Tower Guns, that basic core loop of randomized room, crazy bullets and projectiles, and over-the-top gameplay, and really refining it. So there's a lot more polish in the art, a lot more polish in the gameplay. There are some familiar faces who pop up, some familiar kinds of enemies, but also a lot more sophistication in the enemies now too, because it's no longer just me. So yeah, it's Grip Digital, the partners I'm working with now. They have worked on quite a few games. They worked before helping me out with Tower Guns, or since Tower Guns. They also worked on the Solus project. They worked on either just released or are about to release a game called Skylar and Flux, which they're also co-developing. They've helped out on Subnautica. They've worked on Unmechanical. They've worked on, I'm probably missing some. They've worked on quite a few different games over the years, and they're awesome to work with. They've basically they were like, Joe, we trust you as the designer. We want to give you a team, and that's basically what they've done.
That's great.
So it's like, and it's not really like my team; it's our team. But it's like it's basically I have coworkers now. I have a support crew, and we're able to build something that's way more ambitious than what just one guy can do in his office on his own. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing more in the future.
Yeah, great. Chat, if you've got questions for Joe, whether it be about Tower of Guns, Mothergunship, or his pretty face, you go ahead and send those over in chat. We'll try to pick out some of our favorites.
I have a question.
Sure.
Yeah.
Regarding the way that the gun crafting system works, will it be a cycle where each new run you will have new parts unlocked, or like how do you get to making a gun?
So perhaps I should talk to you a little bit about the headquarters.
Okay.
So the headquarters you go back into, it's a lot more like, instead of it being a one and done run like Isaac is, or like something like Teleglitch, or like Tower Guns, it's much more like Rogue Legacy or Darkest Dungeon now, where you go back to your headquarters hub in between each mission. So this allows me to do fun things like having a player upgrade their abilities or collect craftable items and save them for an Uber gun they may want later. So crafting can happen multiple places. It could happen in your headquarters if you want to start a mission, or you could come across a bench in the middle of a run and tailor your gun right before a boss fight if you wanted to, for example.
Nice.
Got it.
So it's a little bit softer in terms of its permadeath because of that. But in fact, I don't even know if I would call it a roguelite anymore because of that kind of nature. But I don't know if you could call Darkest Dungeon a roguelite either.
It's kind of ratcheting your progress forward as you go, right? Like you're always making some incremental progress, even if you lose.
I've been calling that the Rogue Legacy system since Rogue Legacy came out, which I'm sure that it's existed as a system before then, but that was the one that really stuck in my mind. Is like that's the perennial upgrading, right?
Right. And it's not quite as like Rogue Legacy can be pretty punishing with the way they do their upgrades. You can make no progress during missions in Rogue Legacy just because you didn't earn enough.
Right.
So some of those kinds of design decisions we are still wanting to feel out, but the basic idea, that basic loop of you've got your core combat loop here, and then you've got your headquarters loop here, is something I really enjoyed, and is something I want to kind of focus on making a very enjoyable experience of Mothergunship as well.
Sure.
So
cool.
Yeah, and when you get to crafting itself, that's things get really crazy. The crafting system is very intuitive and very modular, and you basically have 3 different kinds of pieces. You've got barrels, caps, and splitters, and so you can put anything on any place where there's a socket, and you could have a splitter that has 3 exit sockets. You could put 2 barrels on there, like a laser barrel and like a shotgun barrel, and then on the 3rd socket you could put like a what's a good example? An AOE socket, and so now both of those things will do AOE damage or something like that. So it's very creative, and I'm sure that players are going to create things that are absurd and look ridiculous, and that's fantastic. I'm looking forward to seeing the kinds of things that people make and the kinds of situations that they make their guns get into.
Yeah. Clausen is wondering, will Mothergunship have an endless mode like Tower of Guns did?
I hope so. I mean, it's right now. Technically, it does right now. We can wire that up. Wait, actually, I don't know if it's currently stable, but yes, it does. It's in the plan to have endless mode. People enjoyed that a lot. There are some caveats about how you do that because we would want to actually make sure that endless mode is something that we could rank properly. So you might not be able to go in there with a crafted gun, for example. You might have a stock gun. So ways that we could make sure that everybody was on kind of the same playing field in terms of the leaderboard stuff.
Sure.
But yeah, that's something that we would like to have because endless mode was something people really enjoyed at Tower Guns. I am surprised people enjoyed it as much as they did because endless mode felt like to me like it went on for hours and hours and hours, but that's what people wanted, I guess.
Yeah.
Hey, do you guys mind if I drop a couple keys in the chat?
Oh, yeah, no, go ahead.
Please do.
Give them away.
Here, let's start off with just a couple of Tower Guns keys. These are Wait, there's 2 of them in there. I didn't.
That's actually good that you had them together like that, because sometimes bots can grab them before anybody.
Oh, really? Well, there's a split in the middle of those. I'll let you guys figure out where.
That's the way to do it.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
So there's
Appreciate
a couple of keys. I'll keep dropping them out occasionally in the chat.
Awesome.
I don't know how many people are watching right now, but I've got like 10 keys.
that. Yeah,
So
probably like 4.
4
people. Yeah.
Yeah, or more like 936. So those keys probably
There you
went
go.
pretty quick.
So we got another one here from Walt of the Earth, which is a very self-serving question. It says, as a developer, how does he view the value of streamers, and how do you work to create the best relationship with streamers?
I don't know.
You don't know?
This is the part where we have a developer on and then we give them the bend the knee question.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I feel like I did accidentally with Tower of Guns.
Really?
Much better than I thought I would.
Mhm.
Because with Tower of Guns, people were coming to me being like, hey, can I play your game on stream? Or actually, back then, it was not stream. It was more YouTube.
Yeah.
And I was like, I guess, sure. And I had been watching enough streams. Actually, I was watching a lot of your videos, Rockley, because I was watching a lot of the indie impression stuff. That stuff kept me going through Tower of Guns development.
Hell yeah.
Thanks, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, I was like, every day, I was like, what's he getting into this day? It was a lot of fun to see the crazy stuff you would find to dig up from the London Dars and stuff, and that was actually getting me into it was kind of cluing me in. I was also watching a bunch of YouTubers actually, because I was like trying to get a sense for what people responded to in terms of other roguelite-ish kind of games. And so I was learning pretty quickly how important it was to one, if you have a game that caters to it, to make sure that you get this game in front of YouTubers. Not every game does. A lot of story-based games or adventure games maybe don't or didn't then cater to a streamer or a YouTuber. But with Tower of Guns, it was pretty quick for me to see okay, this game is going to live or die based off of whether or not streamers or YouTubers like it. And fortunately, Tower of Guns had limited replayability, but had enough that people really did respond to it for at least a little while, and that I think is the reason that I actually have a career now rather than just a quick sabbatical and going back into working for somebody else. So I have to say thank you to the YouTubers and to streamers both.
That's what we were looking for. There we go. We got
Yeah.
that right.
So yeah, it makes sense though, because you guys are looking for content.
Yep.
These randomized games are endless content, or near endless. And if there are some really like a really look at Northern Lion and 800 different Isaac videos you've done.
800.
800.
Just 800.
Good
all
one.
the time.
Playlist.
Well, all right. How many have you done? He's probably
Right.
probably more than that between all the different versions.
3,000.
Something thousand.
Yeah.
Good Lord, man, that's amazing.
Is it really 3?
That's
oh
one
my
word for it.
God.
Yeah, there's so many freaking things now. You got vanilla all the way up through current.
Yeah,
There's so many playlists.
Man.
Right. Well, and then all the people now ripping it apart with mods and stuff. You've got endless content, which is great for you. But then also, you were to go back, 5 or 6 years to when the first Isaac was out. I imagine that, this was a very symbiotic relationship. It was not Isaac leaning on you for popularity or you leaning on Isaac. It was like you both were kind of growing up together. And
Yeah, I would agree. I don't know. I tend to defer more to the developer side, though. I think streamers do a good job of promoting games, but I don't know. I'm just always wary of thinking that we have too much influence. Because I'm you guys get in your game development box and you make the game for 2 years, 3 years, sometimes more, and then in an hour of work, that kind of becomes make or break for us, which is, I don't know, disproportionate to me. It's very strange. For all the time that I've put into Isaac, everybody who's worked on the game has put in more time than that, probably, or at least close to the same amount.
well, yeah, maybe if you add everybody up together, but yeah, it's. I think that it depends on the game, and for the games I work on, it makes sense. But then also, what it's doing is it's keeping me, as I develop. I'm okay, I need to think about this from the perspective of people who will play it forever. Can this be a game that is sustained forever? And sometimes the answer is yes, sometimes no, and that's okay as long as you know which side you fall on.
Yeah.
How much are people going to want to replay this? How much depth is there to the mechanics? And with Mothergunship, I'm hoping that that YouTubers really pick up on it and streamers pick up on it, because I would love for that community to be. I would love for for Mothergunship to actually foster a community that is self-sustaining the same way that some of these other roguelite-ish kind of games have. So I mean, and Tower Guns had a small community, but it's Tower Guns, that community was a couple years old at this point, and I haven't been updating the game as regularly as something like Isaac has been updated. So it's with Mothergunship, I'm hoping that all of you guys will take a look at it when it comes out.
I think the timing is also a thing too. Like the difference in timing and release of Tower of Guns versus how much more mainstream indie releases seem to have gotten in the last 3 or so years.
Right.
I think that it's just by default going to reach more people right there because there's so many more streamers looking really actively for anything that's going to get big.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and there were quite a few people who latched onto Tower Guns very early, and actually had done a lot of videos, and it's kind of like I would see those YouTube channels kind of accelerate in popularity and feel like I was almost getting piggybacked along, which was great.
Did you happen to watch Bisnap's series on it by chance?
Did I have to see, what was that?
Bisnap did a video
Oh
series.
yeah, he did a ton of stuff. Bisnap, man, all of his stuff is. That guy does a very effective job of analyzing games.
Oh yeah, he's great.
Yeah,
He breaks things a lot.
He does. I've seen, I believe, most of his videos, if not all. Every once in a while, I'll go back through and watch some of the old videos to kind of remind myself about what didn't work or what did work. Joe Hills did a bunch of them. I know that, Nick, you did a bunch of them. So I think that each of you guys did at least one, which I am grateful for. But I think that Nick, I think you did like 12 or 15 or something like that.
We're the most grateful to.
Well, so I expect my Mothergunship code first.
Yeah.
But there were people who were doing like 70 or 80 or 150. There's a YouTuber named Wanderbots who did a lot, and I was like, I expected people to get 10 to 20 hours of the gameplay out of this game. And they're, you check some of the Steam profiles of people who leave reviews, and it's like 300 hours. I'm like,
yeah.
How do you get 300 hours out of this game? I'm not complaining.
People,
the
man.
developer himself is
I get like
surprised.
1,000 hours in Super Meat Boy. Sometimes the game just feels perfect, and you just go in. You just go deep.
Well, I'm not complaining. I'm extremely happy that people have gotten that amount of replayability out of it. But I'm going into Mothergunship being like, okay, we're not targeting 10 or 20 hours. Now we're going to start targeting the 100 hours and see if we can get to 1,000. So
nice.
We'll see how that goes. But like, I do want to. I'm being much more aware of trying to push the replayability up as much as possible to make Mothergunship a game that people enjoy playing for much longer than Tower Guns.
Yeah.
Even though Tower Guns had a decent amount of replayability to it.
Great. I've got a real important one from Blue Emerald here. It says, do you eat fish and chips with a fork or with your hands?
Why do we have to go into this every single time?
I guess we have to ask everybody, huh?
Wait, fish and chips with forks or with my hands, man?
You eat with your
You
hands.
savage.
Like a perfectly normal person would. Yeah, exactly.
No, I am savage. Why are people saying career suicide in the chat?
That's a me joke.
No, that's not.
Oh, okay.
He said if he was
Right.
still playing Isaac in 2014, it would be career suicide.
Oh,
They're not talking about you. Don't worry.
17.
You're
oh, I did see something real quick pass through the chat. Somebody
Sure.
asked me why I didn't go working for Crate.
Mm-hmm.
Because Crate Entertainment is a company that's right here in this area. They do the Grim Dawn games. And Arthur, the guy who founded that company, was a former coworker of mine back at Ironlore. He was one of the lead designers on Titan Quest. And so I wanted to do my own thing. But I did convince him to hire a bunch of 38 people. So there are a bunch of 38 people at Crate.
Nice.
And they're doing good stuff. So, yeah. I just wanted to throw that in there real quick that I'm friends with the Crate guys. They're awesome. And Grim Dawn is awesome. So,
Great.
there.
I have a question.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
How does the development process change specifically with regards to balancing when you have a situation like the crafting system you described in Mothergunship, where there's almost like emergent strategies that can show up based on the way that you construct your gun modularly? Like, doesn't that mean there's like an order of magnitude difference in terms of like having to test to make sure things are not extremely overpowered or underpowered, or?
Yes and no. You're absolutely correct. Balancing is a huge issue. And with the crafting system in Mothergunship, especially since we allow you to build anything right from the get-go, the only limit to the system is that barrels need to face forward, which, by the way, we tried without that, and it's not as fun as it sounds. But
Glad you tried it at least.
yes, we did try it.
Duck Game pulled it off somehow.
Well, that's also side view. When you're in first-person shooter view, shooting behind you doesn't quite work as well as you think you want it to. You really do. You want to be able to shoot things above you, but instead you just wonder why your bolts aren't going anywhere. But it's the way that it works is there's almost this auto-balancing mechanic where the more powerful a gun you build, the faster it burns through basically an overheat meter. And it's your ammo. You have unlimited ammo, but it's a rechargeable meter. And so the result of that is that you can build those powerful guns, but you may only be able to fire it once a second. And so it actually kind of caps itself with DPS until you start upgrading stuff in the headquarters. And so we have the ability to kind of gate balance based off of the amount you've played there. And so that ends up making a little bit of a smoother balance situation. But you're right, it is a complicated situation because the difficult part about that kind of system is that you don't want to ever make the player feel like they're penalized for building something crazy. And so you can also influence that a little bit by what kinds of pieces drop, whether or not certain kinds of pieces or gun parts are allowed to drop. More powerful gun parts may not drop until you've reached certain missions or until the difficulty is at a certain level of tier, rather. So it is a complicated situation that is going to be something we are refining from now until way after we've launched. We're going to continue to support this game and refine it as feedback comes in. And it's something that balance I'm aware of is going to be for the entire development of the project. It's going to be something we're refining because that's the way that a game like this needs to be done.
And it's always interesting, like in roguelites, you don't want to penalize players. Like playing a bunch of Isaac, that's something that comes up all the time, is that there's these items you pick up that actually like ruin your run and make it like impossible or extremely difficult to win. But I imagine when you have like a user-guided crafting system, you also want to avoid giving people like the ability to solve it every time, like for there being one convergent solution that is just like the optimal way to do things. Otherwise, it runs the risk of becoming samey and kind of undermining the replayability.
Right, and that's so. If you could get a barrel of every single type, you could build a gun that shot every single projectile in the game and now be like, okay, now I can shoot everything. So you do want to kind of avoid those kind of situations, and giving the player the authority to build their own gun can lead to that situation very quickly. So you do have to be careful about what drops when, and then also creating that soft limit that I mentioned before. Like they can build that crazy gun, but it may not be as effective as they want it to be. So there are going to be definitely things that come across as more, I guess, successful solutions than other solutions. But hopefully, and I'm okay with that so long as they happen rare enough that the player is forced to use other methods to solve problems as well. Because then they may find something that's a unique way of playing the game that they may not have ever experienced before. And even if it is not as powerful as one of these other options, if they find themselves, in a little bit of faced with a little bit of variety that it runs, that's not a bad thing. And I think that Isaac does do that pretty well when you're not getting certain kinds of drops. I mean, yes, if one thing drops over the other, you're always going to pick that freaking laser gun, whatever it is, the laser eye.
Brimstone,
right, brimstone. You're always going to pick brimstone. But it's like you may like. What am I trying to say here? Like, all those challenge missions in Rebirth, like those things are a great example of this. It forces you to use, like things that I would have never have thought would be fun in Isaac. And I'll play through the first, cellar mission or whatever, cellar level, and I'll be like, I hate this thing. But then by the end of the run, I'm like, this is amazing. I love the planetary orbit item, whatever it is. So I had a lot of fun with those challenge missions, and I want to kind of encourage the same kind of emergent results in Mothergunship.
Right. Cool. I've got one here from Stegosaurus, famed developer of Mount Your Friends. He wants to know if gun distinctiveness is important to you. He said he always has trouble with proc-gen gun games where guns feel too samey.
It is important to me, and it's... Yes. Do you mean samey visually or samey mechanically? Because there's two different problems there. And samey mechanically, I think, is probably what he's talking about. That's like the Borderlands problem, where all of them, all the guns started to feel the same by the end if you had guns of a certain model or make. And one of the ways I'm combating that is by giving the player... We've got a projectile system we're building that's pretty crazy, that allows for a lot of versatility. And we'll be talking more about it in the future, but right now we're not talking too much about what you can do with it. But the idea is that the player would be able to do some really wildly weird things to their guns, and that should help things from feeling samey, even if they feel strange. Another thing that's important there is that you would not necessarily need to have only one gun. Right from the get-go, you'd be able to have two, dual wielding right off the get-go, and that you can craft each of them independently. So you could build your heavy hitter gun that you use for special occasions, and then have your lighter railgun or your lighter machine gun to use for other situations. And that kind of also encourages the player to not build the same gun twice. Instead, they're going to look for ways to diversify each gun so that they can be used in different situations.
Right.
Is the kind of the scope of it, and we talked about the Rogue Legacy style unlocking sort of ratcheting forward progress thing, is the scope of it going to put it so the player will have a lot more versatility and options towards the end of that unlock scenario? So you'll be able to make a much crazier gun for every run?
Potentially, but you could make the crazy gun from the get-go too. It's just whether or not you would find it to be practical. You may never find building a crazy gun to be practical, like a super crazy gun, because you may find that it's not as effective as a gun that uses 4 of the same exact kind of barrel. You may find that synergy works better. Okay,
so you're keeping the balance all the way through to the end, essentially. You're not just sort of letting it go off the rails by the end of that unlock scheme.
Well, that's the hope. Whether or not you can execute it, it's going to depend on a lot of playtesting and a lot of refinement on the system as we go. But that's the hope, that it feels like it's curated, but still allows for the craziness if players want to go that direction.
Some people would see it as sort of a badge of honor to say that you got to the end, so here you go nuts. Like, here's
I still want to do the thing where you have like occasional crazy missions where it's like, all right, we're giving you the window gun. Good luck.
Nice.
Because those kinds of things are fun to play with, and I feel like with Tower Guns, I was really letting the player go crazy occasionally with like getting 100 jumps, and that's something the players really responded well to. So I'm aware that limited amounts of crazy, limited amounts of letting your game be broken for a short while can be fun, as long as it doesn't overstay its welcome.
Nice. All right. I agree.
Great. I was wondering, actually, if the hug bots are going to be making a return.
I haven't built them yet, but I think my wife would kill me if I didn't put them in there. So they're going to be in there.
All right, good.
I'm not sure how I want to do them yet, because I want to implement them a little bit differently. Oh, hey,
look
there's
at
the
him.
little hug bot.
He's got it.
Colleen made that.
That's awesome.
She only made about like 8 of them or 7 of them. Maybe a couple more. So yeah, maybe 10. But yeah, there's not very many of those things around. That is a custom crocheted hug bot that Nick has there. That I sent, we sent as a thank you for all of your streaming love, or your YouTubing love, I guess I should say, specific. But yeah,
you're wearing your Tax 14 shirt, aren't you, Nick?
Yeah. No, I'm celebrating the whole event, honestly. Actually, a complete coincidence that I just happen to have this shirt on today.
Yeah, they'll be making a return. I'm not sure yet how, but if I did not have them, a lot of people would be very upset with me, because they were a favorite character from Tower of Guns. The one thing that I'm struggling with is the idea that if I throw them in every level, you're supposed to destroy each ship by the end of the ship, so all those hug bots are going to be dead.
Yeah, and there was
Save or kill the animals.
Although that happened in Tower Guns too. I think you destroy the tower at the end, so any surviving hug bots got it at the end. I don't know.
Moral quandary.
Yeah, so I'm not sure where I want to put them yet, or if I want to do the similar kind of like difficulty trickery that I did with the hug bots in Tower of Guns. But I did like having them there, and I liked having them have actual gameplay repercussions.
Yeah,
even if they were light.
I was trying to reflect back on that, because they did actually make a difference, right? Whether or not you killed them actually had an impact on your gameplay.
They did quite a few different things. It changed. I don't know whether or not you guys want spoilers or not. I guess the game's been out a while.
We got 3 years is good, right?
Okay, so if you killed Hugbot, you could never get to certain levels. Certain levels would never spawn. You also would get a ratchet up in difficulty. You would get some loot, and then you also would never ever see a golden Hugbot. The longer you went without killing a Hugbot, the more likely a golden Hugbot would spawn. And if a golden Hugbot spawned, it was the same choice, but the risk reward was even higher, because they were more likely to spawn a whole bunch of good loot.
Okay.
So it was kind of like, all right, they couldn't tempt you with these other guys, maybe we'll tempt you with a golden one.
Yeah.
It was a very light mechanic, but people seem to really enjoy the fact that there was something there and kind of figuring out what they did. And I think that people were, I think that they enjoyed not killing Hugbots and finding certain levels, which I liked. So I want to have similar silly things like that in there occasionally. Mothergunship is not treating itself seriously.
It's probably got, I imagine, a similar sort of overall tone that Tower of Guns had, because it's Tower of Guns, while it is hyper violent, it's also not taking itself seriously very much either, right?
Well, it's not. I don't know if you call it violent. I mean, it's crazy and actiony, but no blood, nothing.
Cartoon violence, kind of.
Cartoon. Yeah, it's a game that is accidentally safe for kids because there's no blood or gore.
There's hug box.
Yeah. There. So yeah, with Mothergunship, it is a little more serious in tone, but not that much. Like it's still about crazy bullets going everywhere, crazy kinds of enemies. I don't know if you'll be able to play as a grandma going to a recycling center like you could in Tower of Guns.
I missed that part.
That was one of the weird stories. But you can. Well, no, I'm not going to talk about that. Yeah, sorry.
That's fine. And then this one came up quite a bit as we were filling the questions, but do you have release planned yet?
We've got plans, but we're not talking about them.
Okay.
Yet. Sorry.
Okay. No problem.
It's a little bit early. We just announced a couple months ago. We are quite literally working around the clock, though, because Grip Digital is in the Czech Republic. And so the time zone difference works out so that's like we overlap a little bit. Like somebody's working on this game pretty much 24/7.
Man.
Well, 24/5, I guess. But yeah.
Awesome. And all of a sudden he has entered the void.
Who, me?
No, Ryan.
Oh.
Sorry.
This is my impression of someone getting eliminated from the Big Brother house.
Okay, here we go. Oh. And then we play the little piano medley in memoriam pops up. All right, here we go. I think that's gonna more or less take us out of the Mothergunship segment. So thank you very much, Joe, for talking about that. We're gonna have you. You're not just gonna go. You're gonna stick around. We're gonna
sure. I'm here for as long as you guys want to have me here.
So we are gonna chat a little bit about Twitch's new updates, new features coming to Twitch.tv. That's where we are right now, all of us together. First coming up, the new Twitch sub-tiers system, which is very curious to me. So they just announced this past week. They're introducing 2 additional ways for communities to subscribe to streamers. They've got, of course, their standard $4.99 a month subscription, and they're now unlocking new tiers for $9.99 and $24.99 a month subscriptions. So at first glance, what we can see in the difference between all these subs, the first being the $9.99 and $24.99 subscriptions are worth more sub counts toward the streamer unlocking emote tiers. And then the other one is nothing?
No, they get there's a custom special emote that they can unlock for being a $9.99 or $24.99.
That's right.
And I don't know if they overlap or not. I assume that the $24.99 will get you everything. It'd be ridiculous if it didn't.
Yeah, that would be a little silly. And then beyond that point, see, here's the thing that I imagine is going to be the focal point of the conversation. When we talk about something like this, conceptually it makes sense, right? I think it's good in general for viewers to be able to have more options to support their favorite streamers, right? And to be able to support them for more money every month if they should so choose makes sense. And it's good that they have this option now. However, looking at this and trying to consider what sort of value it adds, it's very difficult to figure that out. I don't
because there's no value.
Yeah, first of all, they're not announcing really anything else at all with this, at least in the beta for it. They've got $5, $10, and $25 a month subscription options now, and all that we know of so far is those higher price subscriptions will count toward unlocking more emotes and also potentially get you an exclusive, more expensive emote.
Maybe it's my cynicism talking, but this just screams of Twitch desperately trying to continue to dip into the Patreon donations scene and pulls money out of that third party and keep it in their own system so they can keep more money.
That's exactly what I was going to say, too. This is just a larger amount of money that they can get a cutoff of faster each month.
Yeah.
But as someone who works, not for tax purposes, I guess, we're independent contractors, but informally we work at Twitch, I'd rather have Twitch have the money than a third-party service. Because I want them to not go out of business and leave us all destitute. So...
It seems fair.
But is that like on the table? That
I mean, I didn't think Twitch was hurting that bad in the first place.
I don't think we have knowledge of that though.
Right.
But
Yeah.
like, I mean, I want Twitch to be as successful as possible, and as long as it comes in ways that are not like manipulative or unethical or etc. Like I don't really have a problem with it.
In the scheme of things, it's really pretty benign. It's just, isn't it sort of a slippery slope though, that like you can use that excuse here, but like it could be more awful, and we would probably say, yeah, but we want to stay in business or whatever.
Just so chat knows, Twitch doesn't take 50% of fucking everybody. Twitch takes 50% of the lower streamers. The bigger you are, the less they take. It's like that pretty much for...
You got to earn your leverage, and then you can get a better contract.
Yeah.
Most of the bigger people are not splitting it at all, I thought.
No, I think they're splitting it. They're just not splitting a lot.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I imagine you guys can't say your splits publicly.
No. The other. I mean, again, it's the cynicism in me. Outside of that, I guess I'm okay with it as long as they don't start locking things other than emotes behind those tiered systems. Because once you start locking away features, as long as you can keep the ad-free viewing at the $5 tier, if really all you're giving away is like a special $25 emote, I mean, it's your money if you want to waste it. But
I just want to say, Roundtable restricts its VODs to paying subscribers only. That's something that's a partner by partner.
What I'm saying is, though, everything that's given to a $25 tier, with the exception of an emote, should also be given to the $5 tier. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Sure. Things should be locked away at the $5 tier, but more aspects should not be locked away the higher you go. I'm not saying like, sorry, VODs, you can only get them if you pay $10 a month. Like, you can get the VODs free on YouTube, A, and B, you can get them on. You can get them right away within a second if you're at the lowest subscription tier.
I want to echo what you're saying there, Mathis, because that is the biggest question I have from this. I'm like not even really. I'm not worried about this at all. I don't see this as like a slope that Twitch could go down. I'm looking at this right now as, what are they going to add? What are they going to do? Because I can't even like speculate about anything that would make this $10 or $25 a month sub more valuable without, like you're saying, Mathis, taking features that already exist and putting them behind more paywalls, which obviously you don't want to do that. And I'm pretty sure Twitch knows that, right? They know they're not going to get away with taking things that were freely available to all subscribers and starting to add more paywalls to them.
What I think they'll end up doing, if they end up going down this road, is they won't do it specifically, but they'll give the tools to the streamer to do it themselves.
Yeah, and that makes sense.
YouTube does that as well, but no fucking YouTuber ever uses or implements that because it's stupid.
You'd be killing yourself,
Plausible deniability for them.
Yeah.
So you guys think they're going to make new cool things that then Twitch streamers can choose to gate behind the 25 gate or the 15
potentially.
gate?
It's a potentiality. I mean, it's not happening now, but I guess I don't necessarily think they're going to do that, but the fear is always there. Like
I would worry about them actually, those cool things being game side interactions. So it's like, in order to interact with the streamer and the game, you have to be a $25 tier in order to mess up somebody's game by throwing a bunch of spikes in it.
Well, they do. A game that already kind of does that is Domina. I don't know if you've ever played Domina.
No, I haven't.
In order to cheer, you can actually enable in the options menu. The viewers are like the crowd, and you can like yay or nay. In order to make more influence, you could throw bits as a way to have more influence within the game. That's just putting money behind having influence. That's all that is. Like Domina does that, and you can do the same thing. You can also, to a lesser extent, like make it subs only, but I guess that's not that big a deal. But yeah, there's already games that kind of have that implemented.
So do you think that
I don't know.
That's like a way for the the streamer to escalate the amount of influence they get from their chat?
I don't know.
So like, hey, pay $25 and you can kill me.
Right.
It's some kind of trap.
Which is the next feature that Twitch is going to introduce.
Well, I mean, in the game, but yeah.
I was laying out those Black Mirror prospects on Twitter last night. Actually, hook it up to a Russian roulette machine. See if people stop subbing.
No, Joe, I actually think you're onto something there, though, because that definitely is something Twitch is looking into. They're really interested, it seems, in the games that are utilizing Twitch integration. Like, even as far back as you guys remember, of course, the Choice Chamber game, which had the beta and then it had the Kickstarter, and Twitch contributed, I think, $5,000 or something toward that Kickstarter. So they have been supporting those sorts of endeavors for a while, and I'm sure they're looking into different ways that they can utilize those sorts of features. And it makes sense too that would be something that you would maybe try to restrict to a higher paywall, because if you can get things like the Dominus system and turn that into something that Twitch can do in games regardless, I don't know how this would really work. Maybe Joe, you would maybe understand this better, but Twitch might be able to use a system that developers can maybe just tack on and say
middleware.
Middleware, exactly, where you could be you can keep your game, but you can also add on this Twitch system where it's subscribers of a certain pay rate, or I don't know how you'd say that, subscribers of a certain amount are able to get different in-game unlocks or shit like that, you know?
Remember the voting system in Party Hard, where it's oh, if you contribute this command, then a bear will show up.
Yeah,
it's you just restrict that to people of a certain pay level, I guess.
Yeah.
Have you guys heard of? I don't know if they're still working on it or not, but the Robot Love Kitty guys or team were working on Upsilon Circuit for a while.
Yeah.
What happened to that?
Twitch integrated game show with combat associated.
Right, but it was also combat where they pulled the players from the crowd, and you could only play once every so often, and so. There's another candidate where it's okay, if you're in that $25 tier, maybe you can play more often, or I don't even know if they're still working on the game or not. But it seems to me that this is a direction that, I don't know how I feel about it, but I do know that it would probably be pretty lucrative for Twitch. But then again, I'm also much more of a don't gate your gameplay behind money. Well, at least as much as you can. It depends on what kind of genre you're making, I guess.
Sure.
Some games are better for it than others, I guess.
I find it also creates, from a player standpoint, this weird balance issue where Twitch chat is a little predictable in the way that integration works in a lot of games. If you give them two options and then an option that's crazy, they will always take the craziest option. Yeah. What you saw in Party Hard, it was who do you want to show up at the party? The police, the firemen, or a bear with a hat on? And it's 99% bear hat on. So you kind of run the risk of it becoming similar over and over, I think, the way that it's been integrated so far. But I definitely think that there's a lot of room to grow in that area.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one of the only things really I can think of that it would make sense for those sorts of features to be locked behind a higher price paywall on Twitch, at least for the subs. But it's tough to really think of any other thing that they could add on. They're adding new stuff still. This year even, they've been adding quite a few new things, but I don't know how much more creative.
Can you do private streams? I guess you could have private streams as well for just.
You used to be able to have a private channel, and they took that option away.
Maybe they're taking it away for this.
They took it away 2 years ago, but it was actually useful for testing your stream setup so no one could go and watch while you're trying to see if everything's synced properly. Now you have to just make a separate account that nobody knows about to do that.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, private streaming, that's one step closer to the wild world of, well, you know what. Cam girls, basically.
I sort of... Getting back to the subscription tier stuff, I did a lot of, I've got this overall malaise and jadedness that I just have no patience for Twitch announcing a new feature and then Twitter for 3 days is what does this mean for everybody? I'll stop you. Not that my opinion is necessarily objectively correct, but as someone who's been doing this for 7 years, just show up to work and then in a month see how it affected things, and then you can talk about it. Even I know there's a meta layer above that because we're talking about it on our show right now, and I'm very aware of that, and it keeps getting deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole. But, I really we talked about bits for so long, and for a while they changed the game, and now bits, at least on my show, are like an afterthought. Bits are like a small value add that people can contribute to if they want to, but like for all of the ink spilled over what bits are going to do for the Twitch experience, like so much wasted productivity over this intellectual circle jerk. And this is like 10% of the bits controversy. So I'm like, I don't know. I feel like it's up to the streamer if they want to be scummy and lock stuff away behind the $25 tier. As always, you could support them or choose not to support them. Mm-hmm. So if you think that they're doing things that are unethical or manipulative, then, you know, let other people get suckered and you just go elsewhere to people whose business.
Or they'll enable it for you automatically, or you'll realize that everyone has done the thing and you have nothing to lose by adding it.
They haven't done that yet, though.
Yeah.
But they do occasionally decide some features become mandatory, and, you know,
but let's give Twitch some credit. Twitch Prime, like, actually changed the game for people on Twitch.
I'm saying it didn't.
So, I mean, why does slippery slopes never go up? Why is there no magnetic slippery slopes?
Because we want to hope for the best and prepare for the worst. And we have very active imaginations, and I personally am rather cynical about the way that corporations tend to end up, which is always the same. And being that it's our livelihood, I have kind of a vested interest in trying to figure it out before they do it, if they're going to do it.
I think we should say, though, that, like, YouTube is in its adpocalypse right now. Every other company seems to be experiencing quite a few issues, at least.
No, but even then, like,
no, I'm getting to a better point here, though.
Okay,
hold on,
just go to work.
I'm saying Twitch has actually been doing extremely well. Their track record the last couple of years is fantastic. Like Twitch Prime, great. Bits, controversial at first. Now they're great. This, I'm sure, is going to be great. Like, this is, there's no issue with this. This is just more sub-tiers. Great. The issue is, like, how do they make it more valuable? Which isn't even an issue. It's like, it's speculation. It's trying to discover what they're going to do or what they're planning.
We've got to speculate about something, or why are we putting on a show, right?
Well, actually,
do we want to go down that road?
To get back to the very self-aware, I mean, Twitch is creating content by having people talk about how much they're concerned about Twitch. And so, from their perspective, it's like the U.S. political machine creating content, talking about the U.S. political machine. I mean, it's like it's self-feeding, and in a way that benefits the hungry monster of consumer Twitch, I guess.
I'm just looking right at the viewer here, you and me. We're on the same level, aren't we? We're all in this together. It all makes sense. All right. Well, I want to talk a little bit about Twitch's newest initiative as well, real quick, while we're on the subject, and that's the affiliate program, which is this has got to be just universally good news, right? I don't know. I don't understand the negative take on this.
Something.
Oh no! I thought for sure. Damn it! All right.
Well, what's the affiliate program?
The affiliate program, brand new, just announced today. It is so it's basically going to be the step between unpartnered streamers and partnered streamers. The Twitch affiliate program is going to expand out to tens of thousands of non-partnered streamers on Twitch. It's going to give you some monetization options, even non-partnered monetization options. They're going to be starting with cheering. So it sounds like pretty soon they're going to be rolling out cheering to just about every Twitch channel that streams. I think the requirement is something like 50 followers and 3 concurrent viewers. Three concurrent viewers. So that more or less is going to be most folks that stream semi-regularly on Twitch.
Yeah, I think I could get that.
Yeah, good job.
Right? Yeah.
You're a Twitch affiliate now. Congrats. So they're going to be enabling cheering with bits. Let me go ahead and actually pull up this little chart here so folks can see the different availabilities of different tiers of Twitch partnership. So as you can see here, no streamers without any affiliation or partnership get cheering, subs, game sales, or ads. Apparently, affiliates will be getting some sort of access to portions of game sales and advertising revenue. Not exactly sure how they're planning on doing that, but they're also going to be allowing affiliates to have a single subscription emote. And I'm also curious how they're planning on doing that. If they're having a sub emote, I would imagine that would mean they're allowing people to subscribe to affiliates then, right?
Well, first off, this has been announced, right? This is not sensitive. Okay. Well, my understanding is that subscriptions are going to be rolled out in a reduced or simplified format for affiliates who are not officially partners.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming there will be like a subscription that gives you very limited benefits, and the subscriber emote might just be the benefit, but
makes sense.
it's kind of like an unofficial partnership, I suppose.
Okay. Transcoding will be given priority access, or affiliates will be given priority access to transcoding. Other than that, it looks pretty much the same as your standard broadcaster. I guess the support queue is the same as well, unfortunately. So sorry if you were hoping for faster responses. Not going to happen. But
Okay. Well, you know what? That softened my response because I had read apparently a minor version of that where all I thought the affiliates were getting were bits. And the way that they had put it with that little trailer was kind of like, we did this all for you. And it was like, but also you're taking a cut of the bits. So come on, let's be honest.
But they're a business.
No, but like, just don't be disingenuous is all I'm saying. They have a right to make money, but just be a little more upfront. You're not being benevolent by giving this thing.
Twitch has to embrace that mentality to a certain extent, I think. Like
people have asked for this, like for people like below our level of influence, it's like a serious complaint that partnership is almost impossible to get unless you've got some engine to get you there at this point.
I have no fucking idea why they gate partnership.
Exactly.
It doesn't make sense. If Twitch wants to make money, why is partnership not just something everybody can have? What are they saving themselves by gating off partnership other than this fake golden gate that you have to break through?
The Polaris effect.
As streamers, what is the big benefit of partnership? Just
money.
Because as a developer, I don't see. Oh,
and transcoding originally, but now that
okay.
seems to be getting rolled out basically universally, which is good because as a non-partner to have your stream look like absolute garbo compared to everybody else, why even bother competing?
It might not even load if you don't have the right setup, basically. That's, you can't stream if people can't watch a stream.
Right.
But they did have a sort of a middle ground where they were taking the top percentage of certain categories and just letting them have transcode options for anyone, partner or not, which was a good step, honestly. That was smart.
And the other little feature is that you can add a stream delay if you're a Twitch partner, which I don't know if many people are.
You can do that through OBS anyway. So.
Oh well, yeah, okay.
It was like YouTube back in the day, where like you can't monetize your videos until you're a partner, and then eventually they're like, "Fuck it, everybody can monetize their videos," because there's no fucking point in hiding it.
In the end, you have to Twitch. I don't know about you guys. I never sent Twitch a deposit that was like, "Hey, I'd like to use like 1/80th of your server on these times." Like, I don't pay any of their staff directly that either come into my chat to make sure I'm not, watching porn on the screen or like, they respond to my emails and stuff like that in the era before, the support ended up getting a lot slower because of partner expansion. But like, if there's 1,000 streams with 30 concurrent viewers, like that costs them, I'm assuming, almost the same as one stream with 30,000 viewers. They need to make something.
You're conflating the issue. I'm not saying it's that bad. All I'm saying is that they need to be more upfront that this is not a benevolent gift they're giving for the sake of giving a gift. It's a business transaction.
See, but
I find that rubs me the wrong way. That's all it is. I'm not saying take them down.
I wanted to argue that point, though, because I think that Twitch actually does have to maintain that face publicly. I think that that's like a core part of how they're succeeding right now.
Twitch lives currently on the cult of personality, bleed purple.
Yeah, the bleed purple stuff. Like that is.
I can't stand that.
That is everything to them right now, and they need to maintain that. So that's sort of why they keep that face up. Which I mean, a lot of companies do that. It's not unique to them to be like, we're all about our customers, we love you. But I think Twitch in particular has an image of community that they are trying very hard to maintain.
Well, they should. The community is their product to all the advertisers,
right.
And to their streamers as well. I mean, I hate the term of community as product, but for the suits in an office somewhere in the Twitch headquarters, the community is their community is their product.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah. That's super cynical.
It's like, so in one hand, you've got the community is your product, but on the other hand, like TwitchCon comes, they won't give people tickets, but they're going to use them to attract people to their conference. Like, it should go both ways is kind of what I'm saying. I don't mean that it's like the end of the world, and I don't think it's even all that disrespectful. I just want to feel like we're more on the same level from a business perspective than they're talking down to us.
Sure. Mm-hmm. The affiliation itself, though, I imagine you've got at least semi-positive feelings about, right?
Yeah, I want to encourage people to stream, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I stand on the side of like, why isn't partnership just an open option?
Yeah, yeah.
I wonder if actually. Sorry, go ahead. I was going to say, I wonder if Ryan was hitting on something earlier with partnership not being open because of the technical limits. I mean, you're not talking about simple logistics here. You're talking about crazy infrastructure. And so maybe it's the kind of thing where they were like, let's go a couple of years and expand it this way until we have reached the ability to open it up to everybody.
Sure.
But now the transcoding is open to people with like 3 current viewers, right? Like you said.
Yeah. Well, no, it's going to be like with priority access for affiliates transcoding. So I don't really know what that means.
Oh, so okay. So the way it used to work before, if I might be wrong, but you would only get transcoding as a non-partner if there were just not enough partners streaming and they had like extra time to transcode or extra whatever, and then you would get transcoding, basically stream on the off hours. But now maybe affiliates will get the priority in taking that when that's available.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Before non-affiliates do.
And like you remember a few years ago when the transcoding seemed to be like almost entirely based off of a viewer threshold, because I remember watching streams and all of a sudden transcoding options would show up when they hit like X number of viewers. So I'm sure that's still like sort of their major justification for not rolling out partnership to everyone is there's got to be some sort of chokehold on the transcoding, right? Otherwise I think I'm with you in that it doesn't really, there's no reason to.
Well, like the other thing is it's not a huge cost per person for paying out and support, but it is like a cost. Yeah. Like somebody at Twitch has to solicit you for your information and then loop you into the payable system. I'm payroll. That's the word I'm trying to think of, but I haven't worked in an office in like 8 years.
Yeah, that's true.
So they got to loop you into the payroll system, and then that's extra things for their accountants to worry about, and then everybody's got to do the checklist thing where you go and put in all your tax information, and then you got to bug the people who haven't put in all their tax information, and then instead of sending 3,000 letters to the IRS every year, you're sending like 30,000 letters to the IRS. Like it does. Everybody that's looped into getting paid by Twitch is going to cost them at least a little bit more.
That's very true. I mean, even if you were to take away all the tech stuff, the infrastructure, the logistics of it, your HR overhead is not small when you're dealing with 30,000 people that need to get a 1066 every year or 1096. I can't remember which one they get, but one of those.
Yeah. Oh, geez. We all just did taxes.
1099.
1099. Sorry, they file one of them and you file the other, and it's 1099. Yeah.
Mm.
But I will say, like, I think it's the affiliate stuff. I think is a good thing because if you have like 3 viewers, you're not gonna make any money anyway. And I don't say that to be dismissive, but like, there's nothing that's ever stopped anybody from having at least donations on show. Right. So I feel like if you have 3 viewers and you enable bits and you even have like a subscription, you might make like a couple of bucks a month as a result of that at most. But where it's really interesting is for the people that are in that kind of awkward range between like just starting out and getting the numbers for partnership, which are actually sometimes nebulous. Like it says you need 400, but sometimes, people with 5 get partnered, and sometimes people that have 500 semi-consistently don't get partnered. So for people in that awkward, like 50 to 399 range, those people actually could be making maybe a supplemental income as something like with the affiliate system if it actually ends up catching on for them. So I think at that level, it's kind of a good bridge to get to partnership, and it helps encourage smaller streamers to keep going, despite the fact that, like I know Corey's in chat right now, but Corey is a friend of mine, twitch.tv/FlackBlag, and he has streamed almost every night for like a year and a half. and he doesn't qualify for like official partnership status, but he still gets a lot of viewers and has like a community surrounding the stream. So for him to be able to like start getting something out of that, it makes it a lot easier to keep doing it long enough that you can grow and maybe qualify for partnership organically.
Indeed.
How the heck does the affiliate thing work? Does that, as a developer, I'm curious about that. Is that tap into any store the developer wants to give links to, or is it very specific Twitch store? Like,
Well,
that stuff is Twitch store only, to the best of my knowledge.
That's what I was curious about. Like,
yeah, I don't think that has anything to do with the new affiliate system. I think
it's an unfortunate name, I think.
Yeah.
But
I don't think. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Apparently, they will be doing that soon for affiliates. Is what I want to say. It's coming soon.
The store thing.
Yeah.
okay.
The one complaint I always say about that store thing is I don't like how it's not an option. It's not optional for you to have it. It's either you
It's
opt in
there
whether you want money
and you
out
don't
of
make
it.
money from it, or it's there and you do make money from it. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
agree
don't
with
like
that.
Again, I really do. I sit on the side of positivity with Twitch for the most part, where I think a lot of the things they do have a net positive impact. Though I will be cynical and always speculate about the negative aspects of each implementation. But the one thing I will say Twitch does is it really consistently is putting pressure on YouTube to fucking do something. That's more creator friendly. And I will always say, if YouTube can just adapt some sort of minor subscription service per channel, whether it be $1 or $2, I think YouTube is back. Like, I don't think they're out of the game by any stretch, clearly, but I think they're back to being more competitive than they have been in the past couple of years, as Twitch really leeches. Every time there's a big YouTube problem, you see more and more people jump to Twitch.
Yeah, and you also see Twitch capitalize on it. In
oh, absolutely. And
too.
you have to be stupid to think YouTube doesn't see that.
Yeah.
I hope YouTube is like planning on doing something with it.
Gaming might just be such a small segment for them, though, that they just don't even care.
I don't think that's true, though. I think gaming in YouTube is still a huge.
You got
thing
the
for
most
them.
subscribed YouTuber is a gamer. So yeah, I think.
Yeah, no, I know that,
see
but
that.
I've seen some threads recently that were going around about, like, it seems that the traditional Let's Play formula is largely dying out, and YouTube is now becoming the standard place to put your VODs.
I think a lot of the reason that YouTube gaming Let's Plays are changing after like the past few weeks, I've talked to a lot of people in YouTube themselves and people who are quote unquote YouTube analysts as a profession. A lot of the reason the Let's Plays are dying is because of the very big algorithm change on YouTube itself. Like, YouTube's algorithm change this year is the most aggressive change they've ever made. And the way videos are being prioritized and found are not how it used to be. And I think that has a lot to do with why, quote unquote, Let's Plays are dying in the way that they are. I don't think they're going to die out, but it's very much become an adapter fade away kind of thing that is scaring a lot of people to go to Twitch.
Well, you would say that YouTube streaming didn't really work out, right? That's sort of
no, YouTube streaming fucking
a dead end.
I think there are actually a few people on there that stream and do pretty well that I know of. But yeah, like, if you're going to stream, you're streaming on Twitch. Or, Beam. It's a joke.
I didn't know if it was.
I didn't hear what you said.
I didn't know if I should laugh or not. I didn't want to be dismissive.
As a developer who doesn't know very much about Beam, I wandered in there and was like, wow, this is a nice UI, but where is everybody?
Yeah, right.
That's my one experience with it.
Yeah.
I would.
Cool.
But
I was going to say I would love for it to do well, just so there's competition, because then everybody is pushed against each other in ways that make everybody get better service or better technology. But it doesn't seem like Twitch has a real competitor other than PlayStation streaming. I don't know.
I think YouTube had a real good shot at being a good competitor for their streaming service, but they didn't follow up with.
They just sort of launched
after the
it, and then we're like, hopefully it works.
Yeah, they kind of just let it go.
Yeah.
It was weird.
All right.
They made the little polygon heart, right? Like, that was
cute.
something.
Bleed red.
All right.
I do.
Nick, I'm going to cut Infinite from our docket here, if you're okay with that.
Okay, it's pretty and it's fun.
It's great. It's wonderful.
It's a pretty good game, but you might be surprised how shocking some of the content material is. I didn't expect that.
How Bioshocking.
How Bioshocking.
All right, cool.
I'm sure that's the first time that joke's been made.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I do
yeah.
want to hear about Slime Rancher, though, because Mathis, you played a little bit of this too, didn't you? Or
I played a lot of it. When it first launched, it was like hot shit on YouTube, and it was doing
What
really
is a
well.
lot though in hours?
Oh, let me check. Well, I feel like it was a lot of it. Maybe I'm incorrect. I've played 6 hours of it.
Okay, I
So
played
for
9 hours.
for the content that was there at the time, 'cause
Yeah.
I haven't touched it since it came out in early access. Like I did everything that was available to do, and then I couldn't do anything.
Right, and I almost did everything that was available to do, and I got about 9 hours. I think I could have gotten maybe another hour or two at most. And I'm going to stop where I am now because I want to let them make more stuff. But I really like the game. I think it's really...
Oh, it's fantastic. It's such a good game.
It's adorably cute. It's deep in a way, but also accessible. And it's sort of like a 3D iterative game, sort of like a Clicker Heroes or like a Cookie Clicker.
Oh, really? Now you got my attention.
Yeah, but with like actual cute little monsters you can play around with. They don't do a whole lot, honestly. They kind of bounce around, eat stuff, get bigger sometimes. But there was a surprising amount of things going on that I didn't fully understand until I spent more time in the game. And then it sort of unveiled new areas and new things that were interesting. I mean, you start out with just these few little plots to build gardens for the slimes, and then all of a sudden you unlock this lab, and then it's got this whole second level, which, Mathis, you may not have seen this part because I think this is a fairly recent addition.
Yeah, there was no lab when I was playing.
The lab is like all of the mid-game content from what I can tell, and you start drilling for resources, and the resources become catalyst materials that you can use to create automation and cosmetic materials.
Ooh, that sounds really nice.
And they plan to make more automation. I'm thinking it's going to end up sort of like Factorio for slimes eventually, which sounds great.
I'm assuming it's still the same where like you can only put like slime cages in very specific locations. It's not freeform. I really hope they let you do it freeform at some point, but
I don't know if they can, though, because of some of the space requirements for things.
True.
Some of the slimes, particularly one of the more recent ones, has this sort of radioactive glow to it, and it has an aura that's about the size of the space between two cages.
Okay.
So if you had them too close together, I can imagine that would make it very chaotic. I don't really know what else to say about the game other than it was surprisingly fun, very well polished for where it's at in development, and like has a lot of potential for later. I almost want to say if you like the concept of it, maybe watch like an hour of somebody playing it and then just wait for it to be done. Because I feel like you're going to hit this point where you're like, oh, I wish I could just finish it. Like, I wish I could see to the end.
Yeah, that's my problem with early access is that I want to, it's too much of a tease for me, so I have to like wait. I think the biggest one I'm waiting on right now is Delver.
Delver's Drop?
No,
Or
Delver.
just Delver?
Just Delver.
Oh,
Just
okay.
Delver, yeah. Which I played an hour of, and I was like, this is great. Wait, 10% done.
That's
And so I feel like,
dungeon crawling kind of looks a little Minecraft-y one, right?
Yep, but is basically a roguelite FPS also. But I don't know what their state is now. I should go back and check. It's been like a year.
Dude,
You got me
Chasm.
excited, man.
When is Chasm coming out, please?
Looks like Slime Rancher actually may be heading out of early access soon, though. It looked like their model was projected for spring 2017, so hopefully they'll
If
be
that's
closer
the
to
case,
finished.
they must have a lot of stuff on the go that did not hit the last patch. Because it seemed like they could have easily had another 10 hours of content intended to be in, but wasn't there yet. There were a whole bunch of missing areas and like things that looked like they were supposed to go somewhere, treasures that implied a thing, and I don't know. I'm very excited to play the final version, but I'm not going to go back to it until it's out officially.
That's the way I felt when I left it, like, 6 or 7 months ago, however long it was. Like, there was a lot there. I'm like, this is awesome. I'm going to now wait. Like, I'm done.
I did the
until it
9
comes
hours
out.
in one session.
Yeah.
I don't even think I took a break. I just kept going and going.
That's insane.
Because it has that kind of like Stardew Valley-esque feel of like consistent progress, making your ranch bigger and more effective, and getting the rarer slimes, and it's just really fun. And it's adorable.
Sweet. All right, and like we said, still in early access. It sounds like they're gonna hopefully be finishing it up soon, but currently $20 over on Steam. Slime Rancher. Cool. Let's talk about Rick and Morty, baby. Virtual Rick-ality. I picked this up on my HTC Vive yesterday for the cool price of $29.99. Finished the whole thing yesterday as well. Played it front to back, more or less. I really, really like it. If you like Rick and Morty, this is basically a 2 to 2.5 hour Rick and Morty episode in VR, where you're interacting. So like the gameplay itself is reminiscent of Job Simulator, where you get put into a lot of different positions where you have to sort of finagle with different contraptions. Like you're in the garage of the house, right? So for the most part, you're just wandering around in the garage looking at all of Rick's crazy gizmos and gadgets, playing with a bunch of different nonsense. And then the actual puzzles require you to figure out how things interact with other things, how to access certain areas, how to really just sort of open up the puzzles of the world. And I think it's I think the biggest issue people are having is the length of it, which is a little disappointing. I don't really know though, like where I am on this matter. Like I don't know how to really examine the value proposition of VR games right now, because I think it's a really unique situation. I think that $30 for a 2 to 3 hour VR game is a lot different than 30 hours for a 2 to 3 hour like narrative game or something like that, right? Like it's totally different comparison.
It's kind of a supply and demand problem, isn't it? At the point we're at right now, there's just not enough experiences that are going to push that price down yet.
Mm-hmm. And you're probably right about that. And that's sort of the assumption I made too, is that these are just going to naturally be more expensive because there's not a lot out there, and there's
right.
it's just very limited selection. However, this is definitely one of the better VR games I've played, despite the short length and despite a few weird issues that I still really can't determine whether it's just my equipment or if these issues are happening in these games. But there will often be like issues of item detection. So, for example, a lot of things will fall through cabinets or drawers. It's common to be holding something and all of a sudden have it freak the fuck out completely because you interacted with a cabinet or with a table in some weird way. So that'll happen every now and then. And it's also sort of frustrating because there are a couple of segments where you have to interact with like 4 or 5 different apparatuses right in front of you really rapidly in quick succession. Like there's timers going down for everything and you have to really quickly move back and forth. Like you're standing up and you're moving your whole body to get to these different points. And that requires a certain level of precision, and it's handled mostly well, but there are definitely times where you think to yourself, I don't know if that's what I really did there. But yeah, it's really polished though. It looks great. The animation in the game itself was really awesome. It really felt like I was there in the garage. And yeah, like I said, like this is just it's the easiest recommendation in the world if you have VR headsets and you like Rick and Morty. Like
it felt like it looked very visually faithful for being 3D to the show, which I thought was cool.
Absolutely, it did. Yeah, I was really pleased with that. Which, of course, you know, it's the guy behind the show, Justin Roiland, is the one actually part of Squanch Tendo with this, so that makes sense. Although this was Alchemy as well, I guess, was the one that was credited with the development here. So
yeah, that's the Job Simulator guys.
Yeah, Job Sim. Right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it looks like they were working together too. But yeah, I can pretty easily recommend it with those caveats of if you like Rick and Morty and or if you have VR. If you don't like Rick and Morty, this is a more interesting recommendation. I still think I can recommend it, actually, even if you've never watched the show, weirdly enough. Like, it's not like you have to have seen the show to play it, but you can play this, and it's a fun, weird sci-fi adventure that's very vulgar, but it's fun.
How does it compare to Accounting to you? Because that also has the Justin Roiland same kind of comedy to it.
This is going to seem weird. I don't actually. Okay, no, hold on. So Accounting is like almost as good as Virtual Rick-ality, and is like only half the length of Virtual Rick-ality. Like,
wait, but I played Accounting, and there's like very little that actually happens in it. It's mostly just listening to voice acting with like occasionally moving something.
Yeah, there's a lot more you actually do in Virtual Rick-ality. Okay. So there's a lot more gameplay. There's actual puzzles. There's a whole bunch of different shit to interact with, and there's like a bunch of Easter eggs. Apparently, you can find Jerry somewhere in the game. I didn't know that, but I guess he's in there. And yeah, there's all kinds of shit to do. There's not a ton of replayability. I think, like, if you did everything, you would probably only need, like, 4 or 5 hours to do it all and to completely 100% finish the game. But just like quality-wise, accounting was on par with virtual reality. It really was. Yeah. Other than that, it's $30. It's available on Steam and the Oculus. There you go. Virtual reality.
I've heard that at least as of last year, the complete install base of HTC Vive was like 150,000 or something like that. And that is something that is very frightening to me.
That is that high or that low? Because that's way higher than it was.
Maybe this is like combined VR ownership then, because I was like, I'm thinking about it and I'm like, we're in this period where everybody's like really optimistic about VR.
Yeah.
But who is gonna make a VR game, or like not who, but how many people are gonna invest like a lot of resources into making a VR game where if literally everybody bought it, your maximum revenue cap is like under $3 million.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, $3 million is a ton of money if you're developing it yourself.
Yeah.
Or maybe you have like a small team and literally everybody buys it. So I feel like we're in this strange position now where people are like, yeah, you know, if Sony will pay me, or if like Steam will pay me to make this game, then I'll make it. But
yeah, I want to hear your
it's got
thoughts
to be
on that,
more
Joe.
though than it's got to be more than 150 total, because if you think about it, and this is the reason people were so excited about PlayStation VR, is because of the install base of the PS4.
Right, yeah.
So I feel like you do have a bit of a chicken and egg situation here too, that people are looking for the system seller,
right?
And people aren't going to buy the system without a system seller. That's why I was really surprised that the Vive wasn't coupled with an announcement like Half-Life 3 or something like that.
Right.
Because that would have, like, that's how they got people on Steam 15 years ago, was with Half-Life 2.
They got me.
So it's like, yeah, exactly. So it's like Valve was smart enough to know that, and I was surprised that they didn't hold back or save it for, I don't know, maybe they'll just never do Half-Life 3. But it seemed like that would have been a very good fit to help push the system, and I was kind of surprised that there was nothing from Valve in terms of software. At least nothing yet. They've got to be working on a ton of stuff, I'm sure.
Well, Valve definitely is working. Like I remember just a story we did on Roundtable a few months ago. They're working diligently on 3 full-fledged AAA VR games, so we know that much at least.
Yeah, it's got to be. They've got to be looking at it as like, how can we sell this system? And in the meantime, you're just going to end up with the Vive 1.5, Vive 2. You're going to get better and better and better with the hardware. So that's not a bad thing.
I figure we won't see an announcement for like one of their AAA games until like Vive 2 is about ready to go.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree with you there. And I think virtual reality is like the closest I've seen to a AAA VR experience. You know, like it's very well polished. Everything in the game is done extremely well, and it you know, it's got like the clout of a pretty large property. So it had the ingredients, but it definitely needs a bit longer of an experience. It seems so trite to just say like make it longer, but like it felt a little I felt a little slighted by the end of it, because I was so into it by that point, only like 2 or 3 hours in, and then it's like, okay, you're done. Congrats. Good job.
I think there's also the pressure of just, I don't think that most people want to play a VR game for many, many hours.
Yeah.
So they perhaps sort of tailor these to be a bit more bite-sized. I mean, it may also be a budgeting constraint. I don't know. But my guess would be that probably not many people are going to put on a VR headset and do a 25, 40-hour game.
That's true, yeah.
I'm thinking like the VR version of Abduction might have been the most AAA feeling VR game that I've played. And that wasn't perfect either, but it was pretty good.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever try the like Epic games, the Robo Recall and the Bullet Station?
No. Which one is that?
Robo Recall was it's definitely very pretty looking for, VR's limits.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool looking. I don't know. I don't have any VR kit, so I haven't been able to try it myself.
Oh,
but
is this an Oculus exclusive?
I do not know. And then they had another one a little while ago that was a train station shootout thing. They've done a couple of interesting VR experiences over the years, and I feel like they're pushing I don't know, like they're pushing an interesting like develop in VR mode, which is kind of neat. You can actually make games in a 3D in a VR mode, which is kind of gimmicky, but also kind of cool. And I kind of want to live in that future.
Yeah.
So I know that's the thing that tempts me as a developer. It's like now I'm starting to see sculpting programs in VR. I'm like, I would love to do some sculpting in VR.
Have you checked out Tilt Brush at all?
No, I want to.
It's
I've
great.
seen
I
it,
just
but
got
I like.
that. It was on sale the other day.
It's
It's a
wonderful.
great program, yeah.
I would love to mess with Tilt Brush. There's a sculpting program I'd love to mess with where you can get like really zoomed in and like, oh, man,
Yeah.
it seems like a really cool way to experience creative outlets, I guess, in new ways. But yeah, I haven't gotten a chance. I've messed with a lot of different VR demos at like trade shows or at friends' houses, but like not enough to really be on full board with it yet.
Sure. Cool. All right.
But if anybody wants to send me a kit, then I can.
That is Virtual Rick-ality. It's $30 on Steam right now. And last but not least, it's Flinthook. Anybody want to take this one? Mathis?
Flinthook, yeah, sure. Flinthook is a new roguelite like that's more akin to Rogue Legacy. Again, is perpetual advancement. You make every run makes you more powerful. You can go buy things in the black market between each runs that make you more powerful for the next run, et cetera, et cetera. It's like the space. You're like a space pirate thief that goes into these ships and steals things and is like hunting a bounty, which ends up being the boss of the run. It's 2D. It's like an action platformer, and it's good. It's not great, I think, but I really like it, and I'd say it's good. A lot of the reason I think it's good has to do with its controls and the way it presents everything. It is a very good-looking game, but it also kind of dies by that sword and making everything too busy and makes things hard to distinguish.
Mathis, would you say that the movement in the game is specifically the hook?
Good one.
Thanks,
one.
man.
No problem.
Ish.
Top. Actually, yeah, I would say the movement is actually really, really fun because you have this hook, and there's in each room you're like swinging from like hook point to hook point, and the movement is very fluid, very responsive. The issue with the controls is that I find that on the controller and keyboard and mouse, each one you can play it with, they feel adequate on each one, but they don't feel good or great on each one. There's like problems in each control scheme, and it doesn't feel like the game was designed specifically with one or the other in mind. Even with the sniper upgrade, Bear, that you told me about and I got last night, it doesn't fix the issue because a lot of if you're playing on controller, aiming is done with the same joystick that movement is. And when you get the sniper thing, what you can do is you can root yourself in place and aim. But a lot of the rooms, there's a lot of bullets flying around. So if you root yourself in place, you're gonna get hit, or you're gonna end up like it's almost like a death sentence. It's gonna cause damage, and so it's not really a smooth fix. Whereas keyboard and mouse, you have the ability to free aim as you move with the mouse, but the reticule is so hard to see and all the shit that's going on, and the reticule moves really fast with the mouse that I find it difficult to aim with that as well. So I don't know, like it just doesn't feel great on either one.
Here's a question for you. Do you think that the problem then would be controls or level design? Like could the level, because I only played the earlier levels and I thought the movement was great, but I also felt like maybe the level design could have been built around the hook, like giving you more time to walk towards a hook that you then fire at.
Yeah, that might be the issue, is that level design could use some tweaking. Because when you are hooking around too, there's not enough fine-tuned control over where you're flying.
Well, but there's a slowdown mode.
Yeah,
that lasts like half a second. Though
I
that's the issue.
You upgraded that as you got further.
I haven't. Maybe you have. Maybe you do,
bit.
but I haven't yet. And the slow-mo mode doesn't last that long. It lasts long enough to get you through the things that you need to slow down for. And I was saying that through the couple episodes that I do. I'm like, I feel like I need to be using the slowdown mode, but every time I use it, it doesn't last long enough for it to be effective.
I just saw that as like the logical piece to the puzzle that fixes that problem, which is why when I heard you saying that, I was like, oh, well, they must have thought of that.
Maybe they did, and maybe it is later on. I just haven't gotten it yet. But I do like the game a lot. That's the thing. Like it's a really good game. It just the imperfections kind of jump out to me. And another thing I think we're talking about as well is because everything is so in your face, gorgeous and bright and colorful. There are certain things that are hard to see. Like there's a whole room that is just spike traps everywhere. But first time in through, I was like, I didn't notice like the gray metal bar that represents spike straps because it just doesn't stick out enough.
The game's kind of low contrast is the thing.
Yep.
It's gorgeous art, though. Like, I've been a fan of that artist for a while, and I think it's Dom2D on Twitter, and he's fantastic. He or she, actually, I don't know if it's he or she, but they're fantastic. I've every once in a while, a new GIF will be posted, and I'll be like looking at it and be like, oh, awesome. This is when it was in development still. So I can hear what you're saying about the artwork feeling busy because there's so much gorgeous things to look at. You begin to lose your sense of depth between the background and foreground, or what elements are important to pay attention to. The priorities, I guess, are an issue.
Like a lot of the just little like stuff laying around in each room, you can actually break and there's money in it. But I didn't realize that for a while. I didn't realize that it's stuff you could bust open because it looked like it was part of the background, and I just thought it was there. But no, actually you can break things open. There's money in them.
Difficult sometimes to actually find your character on screen too. Weirdly enough,
it's a lot.
In the more cluttered rooms.
And the targeting reticule is just this tiny little red like blinking thing. It's not bright enough. It needs to be brighter.
I really enjoy the movement. Weirdly enough. To really contrast with your opinion, Mathis, but like the hooking itself is really satisfying, and the more I play it, the more I begin to realize, oh, I could get really good at this. Like I think
that's what I thought too.
There's a pretty high skill ceiling, right? At least it seems like that.
It felt like it had that sticky, like that's right, that feels good.
Yeah, definitely
feeling about it.
I thought that as well, but I've only played the first 15 minutes of it, but. I love how they integrate that movement into everything. Like going from room to room is hooking from room to room, which I thought was awesome. It's very cohesively themed, I guess is the word.
Yeah.
No,
I really like the thief aspect. Like you're just kind of busting into this place and stealing everything, and killing all the bad guys.
But it's like pirate ship thief things with it's like this weird world all of its own. Yeah. But it's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like the way that you progress as well. I think it's a really smart system of progression where you've got the raids that you go out on, and then you're trying to do as many as you can within one life, and then once that life goes, you'll level up after that, acquire all the goods and the experience that you got from the raids, and then you've got that Rogue Legacy progression system again where you're carrying over your unlocks and your progression into a brand new experience. And I really like that system of progression. It gives you a lot of incentive to play immediately and play long term, so it's really good. And I agree with you, Joe, in that the traversal between rooms also is fun, which is such a little thing, but it's like I like really quickly zipping from room to room when I know where I need to go. It's like bam, 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 I'm there, and I really like that a lot.
It's a weird thing to think is fun, but
exactly.
Yeah, it gives it a little bit of character too, and it's an element that's almost like a UI element. It's the thing that isn't usually part of gameplay is the way you transition.
Exactly.
But in this case, it feels natural. It feels like an extension of the theme that they set up, which I like a lot. And being sort of a connoisseur of, I think, platformer controls, even in the little few minutes I spent with it, it feels so smooth.
Yeah.
Like, I just want to move the character around the screen, which is like, that's a good sign.
Definitely.
That means I'm going to spend some time with this, figuring it out.
That's like...
I look forward to playing more.
It's maybe a little presumptuous to say, but like without that being extremely good, it's difficult for me to play games like this. Like for the 2D platformer genre in general, you've got to nail the controls. You have to.
Oh yeah.
What's funny though is your love for Spelunky. The controls in that are a lot less accessible. But I guess once you get them, you get them.
Yeah.
Is that kind of?
Well, I mean, yeah, I can. I don't know if I agree with that, but I can see that, like, well, for me at the start, it wasn't that I was having an issue with the controls, it was having an issue with the enemies and with the environments, and just having to learn those. I never really remembered struggling to adapt to the control scheme.
I think I did.
Did
with
you?
Spelunky?
Yeah.
I think, two things in particular. One was that the jump height didn't feel quite natural. Once I got used to it, it's fine. But it felt a little bit different from what I was expecting and a little bit slower in terms of the gravity taking into effect. But then the bigger thing was, and this is actually, I think, implemented on purpose, was the amount of overhang you had before you'd fall. And that would catch me a lot for the first 4 or 5 hours I played Spelunky. It took me a long time to get used to, and once you did, you did, But learning how far I could push over an edge before I fell is pretty important in that game.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it would constantly be something that was a struggle for me with Spelunky early on. Now I shouldn't say I've only played, but I've mostly played the Vita version, and that may also have some bearing on this. But I love the game. I think it's fantastic, but it did take me a couple of hours to feel like I was actually feeling the controls for Spelunky.
Yeah, sure.
And once you dig in with Spelunky, like, it's in. It feels right, but it takes a minute to get to that moment, because it's not exactly implied. Like, you're not going to be able to tell by looking at it what degree of air control your character's going to have, how fast you're going to fall.
Yeah, everything there makes sense from a gameplay standpoint. I can see exactly why they did it. It was just to make a better game, the introduction for new players who were not used to that movement was a little bit rougher, but not that rough. I mean, it certainly was more polished than the older PC version, older free version.
Whereas Flinthook, I felt like I immediately was ready to go, like the second I started it up.
Yeah.
So.
No, I may be a bit too far removed from my beginner's experience with Spelunky now to be able to really properly remember what that was like. But definitely with Flinthook, I felt that connection right away. So, yeah, it's good stuff. Anybody else want to talk about it? $13.49, currently on sale, available on Steam right now.
I recommend it. Yeah, it's a good game. I think you should check it out.
I think I'm going to play like a few hours of it after the show today.
I think
Do we know anything about the long-term scale, like how big it is?
I don't.
I have no idea.
Yeah, me either. I'm just curious.
Just hoping. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be making some videos on this actually too. So there we go. Flinthook. It's good stuff. It's on Steam right now. And that, in a little bit of a longer show today, is going to take us into everybody's favorite segment. It's Ask Roundtable. Ask Roundtable, the weekly segment where you send your questions into roundtableyt@gmail.com. Mitchell asks us, do you remember the first game you bought with your own money? Do you still play it? Was it worth the investment? Was it worth the investment is my favorite part for sure.
Nothing I spent my money on as a kid was worth the investment.
Yeah, so he says, I'd like to thank you guys for doing the podcast because video games have always been something I've been into, and your discussions about them always help me think more about the medium as a whole. It also provides me a break from my college studies. He asks if we remember the first game we bought with our own money, whether or not we still play it. And he says the first game he remembers buying was Dragon Quest IX, and he still plays it. Well worth the $30 he spent on it, apparently. That's awesome. He's also put in a recommendation for Nick's Weird Games theme song. He wants to hear the Ghostbusters theme. We'll get that going. But let me start with you, Joe, because I know you're well prepared for this one. The first game you remember buying with your own money.
So it's tricky because I don't know which one it is, but I brought visual aids because I still have it.
Yeah, that's the best.
So I didn't have a console growing up. I did get some PC games as gifts, but I don't consider those bought with my own money. It would probably be one of these two things. These are old Tiger handhelds.
Oh, damn.
It's Wizards and Warriors.
Damn, man.
Damn.
Awesome. Yeah, and then this one is Mega Man 2. And
I love that art on there. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. And it's
probably
better than the game was.
Yeah, I was saying, most faithful recreation of Mega Man 2 you've ever played.
Yeah, this game, man, it was not. None of these Tiger handhelds were all that very good, except for the Marble Madness one. But I traded that to a friend for Kung Fu, and Kung Fu was not good. I never got it back.
Oh, man.
The Marble Madness one was great. But, yeah, these things were not very good games. But as a kid who didn't have a console, and I was like maybe 8 or 9 at the time, I was like, oh, these are awesome. But I don't know if it'd be worth the investment.
Yeah.
But that's my visual aid because I was told the question ahead of time.
No, yeah, smart.
Anybody else got one?
I'm trying to think.
I'm struggling with this one, man. I can't remember
here's
back
the thing.
then.
I don't know what I would buy. Like, I never really had an allowance as a kid.
Yeah.
So the only time I can think of buying games is when I had my first job. My first real job as host at 15 or 16 years old at Applebee's, of course.
Yeah.
And I never saved my money. Whenever I got my paycheck, it was the day of, be like, Dad, bring me to Best Buy. I want to buy a video game. So I just bought so many games. But like one of the first ones I can remember buying is like the original Ghost Recon for the original Xbox. And then I remember playing that and loving the hell out of it. But yeah, I just blew all my money. I never saved any of it. I just would go and buy 2 or 3 games with my paycheck and go home and play them for a week until I went and bought new ones next week. So but Ghost Recon, I guess, would be the first one I can really remember.
Yeah.
How old were you again at that point?
Like 16, probably.
Because I think that's what you're supposed to do with your paycheck when you're 16.
Yeah.
Or actually, I should say, I think your parents are probably happy that you were doing that with your paycheck at 16.
Instead of
I
some
feel
other
like
options.
I should have like saved it, because you look back now at like 30 years old and be like, man, I really wish I, saved all that money and done something better with it. But no, I was like blowing it all on video games. And the very first purchase I ever made with my money from a paycheck, period, was a big like radio with like a 5 CD changer.
Yeah,
Oh,
dude.
I did that too.
Hell
First job
yeah.
I got with like paper out money.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, this is awesome.
Fair enough.
Oh man, Nick or Ryan,
Mine's-
y'all got one?
No.
Ryan's
So,
like,
okay, it's motion. I'd say mine's a bit hazy. I'm not sure if this is the correct answer, what the actual first one is, but it's convenient for the sake of anecdotes.
Sure.
So I'm going to say I believe the first game that I paid money for was Earthbound on the SNES. And I remember paying $90 for it because it came with the strategy guide.
Ooh.
And it had this massive box that was bigger than every other box.
Yeah.
Got it from Funcoland, and I believe I had that money from a birthday present or something. And I
$90, man. That would have been like
on that.
in like 1996 or whatever. It was 1994.
Yeah, somewhere around there. So flash
Crazy
forward to, did I get a good investment out of? Well, I beat a Earthbound at least once, so that's probably good. But maybe about 4 years ago, I found the strategy guide in my attic, and it had some scratch and sniff stickers on it. Don't sniff those after they've been in your attic.
smart.
I did that, and I thought I was going to die. I thought I had like spores lodged in my brain and they were growing at a rapid pace. I actually thought I was going to die. Don't sniff those stickers.
Yeah, those things are probably worth $90 alone now.
Mhm.
If the box was in good shape and I could put it all back together, I believe that is probably worth a bit, but it's all kind of tattered now.
Oh man. Yeah.
I bought Star Wars Shadows of the Empire on N64. I had games before that, but I think my parents bought them all. But definitely, they kind of bought this one. It's not like I had a job, but it had been money that they had given me and I'd accrued over a
You had
period
saved
of
it.
allowance. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it was their money, but I had been the steward and custodian of that money for some time, and thus ownership had passed to me.
Sure.
And instead of buying Super Mario 64, which was like $80, I paid 110 Canadian dollars for Star Wars Shadows of the Empire.
The
And
game was
Good deal.
considered good?
it was okay. It's no Mario 64 though.
Yeah.
Remember you wrapped the thing around the legs of the walkers. That was...
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
That,
That
was
was
the
cool.
only. Yeah, that was like the good
was
part of
pretty
that
dope.
game.
Yeah, but
And
you
then
could
you
do
got
that in the Super Nintendo one too, couldn't you?
Yeah, but it was cooler in 3D.
That was the Mario Kart 3D though, like the 2.5 pixel 3D.
Yeah,
Yeah, like the ground is
Mode
moving.
7.
Yeah, the Mode 7
Mode
3D. Thanks. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm trying to go through like my progression of what I've had and determine at what point I started to provide those things for myself.
It's hard to remember.
Yeah, because like I know I started with Genesis, obviously my parents, and then PlayStation was my parents. PS2, I'm pretty sure my parents bought and provided the games for. And then I think the first console and game that I bought for myself with my job money was probably an Xbox 360 with Halo 2. And that pretty much set me on a track for the rest of my entire life. So I'm going to go ahead and say that was probably worth the investment. I also played...
Original Xbox and went straight to Xbox 360 for Halo 2?
I think I did, yeah, because I was playing...
Wild, man.
I was playing Halo PC for a long time. Not even PC. I was playing
Nice.
Halo on the Mac for a long time, and that was what I was doing for like years and years before that. And then I was eventually like, well, I can play the new Halo on this console. So.
They did port it to PC, Halo 2.
What?
But I think
Yeah,
way
I
later.
played the first one on PC.
They have it...
They did.
They
No,
have
for real, they
Halo
really did. I
2
remember
on-
stocking it at GameStop for a while. And also, the original Halo had like
Yeah.
2 extra weapons.
Yeah.
It had like a plasma cannon and like a flamethrower or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. The PC version had a plasma cannon on it. It had
Why do I know this shit?
Well, I got an early game that I remember buying early on.
Uh-huh.
Back when I was getting mostly gifts, I saved up my money and bought a copy of Faceball 2000 for the Game Boy.
Ooh.
I had that.
And it was
I had
hard to
that.
find. I had to stock the Funcoland. You saying Funcoland is what made me remember it, because it was like every month I'd call them up, be like, "Do you guys have a copy of Faceball?" So for those in the chat who don't know, Faceball 2000 was a very, 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 very early first-person shooter.
September 1992.
Yeah,
It was like Emoji Doom.
It was basically Emoji Doom. Yeah, you had walls and ceilings, nothing on the walls, and you shot smiley faces. And when you shot them, they became sad faces, and then they died. But it had multiplayer, and you could play with 4 players if you could find 4 copies, which I never did. But it was like hard to find, and that game set me probably on the path towards playing first-person shooters.
Yeah.
Or towards loving first-person shooters.
That's
It's
awesome.
probably Faceball 2000.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you knew they had that on SNES also, right? That the Game Boy version was a port?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, okay.
Well,
I wanted
I
to
don't
blow your
know.
mind in case you didn't know that.
I think it was on PC first, but I didn't have a PC that could run it.
PC?
I think. It was
Now
called
you're
something
blowing
else,
my
though. It
mind.
wasn't called Faceball. It was called,
Oh, yeah.
something.
Just
Yeah.
had this up. Mini Maze, right?
Mini Maze, yeah. It was,
No,
Maze.
MIDI Maze.
MIDI Maze.
yeah, and I think on the Game Boy one, I think you actually had a grid. You could make your own levels. And I was like, that sounds amazing. But you couldn't save them, so it wasn't actually all that amazing.
Shit, there it is. Platforms, Atari ST.
Damn,
Shit.
son.
Yeah, I
This
thought the
is
Game
the
Boy one came
oldest-
out.
Is this the first-person shooter to ever exist?
No, I think there's earlier ones than that, but it's up there, yeah. And I remember thinking, because before this they had first-person shooter type things, but they would be like almost like oh shoot, why can I not remember the name of it right now? Like the regimented 90-degree or 45-degree turn kind of games, and it was
Like
kind
Shadowgate
right, like Shadowgate,
or
only
Fantasy
it's
Star. Yeah.
right, only it would be they would try and make it an action game, but it would still be locked perspective. But this was like fluid, and you could kind of strafe. But it was not particularly good in hindsight. It doesn't hold up very well. But as a kid, I was like, "This is the most amazing thing ever made. It changed my life."
I thought the whole like term first-person shooter didn't even really come into existence until after Doom was released.
No, it didn't come into existence until then, but the genre still predates it. That it's kind of like the idea of platformers not being around before Mario.
Sure, yeah.
You know, they still had them. You know, like you could play ASCII platformers back on your 80s PC.
Yeah,
It was, you know,
Was the Vector Tank game, would you consider that a first-person shooter?
maybe what, like Battlezone or what was it called?
Yeah, I think it was Battlezone.
Maybe. I mean, we're talking about some old games here, though. There's Faceball was definitely an early one, though, or at least the MIDI Maze version of it. But yeah, that's ancient history.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I remember
from
that.
1980.
Holy shit.
I'm gonna find the original first-person shooter that didn't know it was one.
Yeah, do it, man. All right, while you're doing that, I'll say thank you very much to Mitchell for sending us in this question to roundtableyt@gmail.com. If you've got questions to ask us in future episodes, that's where you email them to. It's roundtableyt@gmail.com. It's time for everybody's favorite segment. After their favorite segment, it's Nick's Weird Games.
All right, so I got 2 things to say.
Yep.
The first thing is that the chorus of Ghostbusters is seriously just win it. So like that part, you're just gonna have to bear with it, I suppose.
Sure.
I got a 2-verser here, and it's also it's a call and response.
Okay.
Because, you know, in the original Ghostbusters, it goes, you know, if there's something strange in your neighborhood, who are you going to call?
Nick's Weird Games.
Nick's Weird Games.
Oh, you got it. All right.
We're there,
So
yeah, we're there.
Feel free to join in at your own comfort level, Joe. I wouldn't want to put you on the spot too much here.
I have no idea what you guys are doing.
All
right,
You'll
It's
figure
a
it out.
segment where we guess a game that I pull out of my bookshelf.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So imagine that you've just heard the Ghostbusters intro, and then it goes, you know, that's a different song. If there's something weird sitting on your shelf, what you gonna play?
Nick's
Nick's
Weird
Weird
Games.
Games.
Yeah.
Delay makes that bad.
An indefensible game that you bought for yourself. What you gonna play?
Nick's
Nick's Weird Games.
Games.
And then it goes. I am playing those games. I am playing those games. And then, you know, it goes into the next section and it goes, if your game comes with something scratch and sniff, what you gonna play?
Weird games.
Just recuse yourself if you catch a whiff. What you gonna play?
Next weird
Next
game.
weird
games.
game.
And then it would go
Wow.
dana again. You get the idea. Yeah.
Is there actually a payoff to this? Does Nick show us a game now?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, there's actually
Okay.
a thing we do
We
after
didn't
it.
explain
Yeah.
it at all. So Ryan has a habit of singing an intro to this segment where I then go find a game off of my shelf of old and weird games, and then I give you clues and you try and guess what game it is.
While you hide
Oh.
chat so you don't get the answer.
Yeah, you hide chat.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I
We
see.
should have explained
Oh,
the
okay.
segment to you before we did the show.
Yes.
That was my fault.
Now, if you could pull Faceball off, that would be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Just
Right?
pull Faceball off the shelf.
I didn't,
With-
but it's back there somewhere.
With you
Um,
here, Joe, I think our chances of success have gone up astronomically, so I'm
Well-
pretty excited about that.
I'm with you.
Oddly enough, for today's episode, I happened to pick a PS3 game, so it almost doesn't matter.
All right.
You all have an equal.
Equal playing field. Here
Equal
we
chance.
go.
Is it Lair? It's Lair.
We did Lair already. It's not going to
Damn
be
it,
Lair
forgot
again.
about that.
So today's game, as I said, a PS3 game developed and published by Sony Online Entertainment, was released in November 2006. Obviously, we don't no Googling here, too.
Mhm.
Vanguard.
It is a hack-and-slash action role-playing game with both single and multiplayer, and was touted as having important multiplayer to its functionality.
Important multiplayer.
It was a big selling point at the time, is what I'm trying to say.
Mhm.
So feel free to take guesses at any point if you want.
I think I know someone who worked on this.
Wow.
That's badass.
That's a tell.
No, actually, was it a Gauntlet spin-off kind of like a Gauntlet-ish kind of game?
In genre, but not in form. It's not related to it.
Hmm.
You said it's fantasy hack and slash?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I can give you a few more here. So characters. This actually makes it sound a lot more like Gauntlet when I read this, but it's still not. There's a warrior, a mage, and a scout.
Okay.
Hold on,
So those are
I'm
your
looking
three-
up my friend's resume, and we're going to see if this is actually.
3 character classes. It did not fare particularly well in reception, unfortunately.
Like most Sony Online Entertainment games.
It was a mixed
Untold
bag.
Legends. Is it Untold Legends?
Do you have a full title?
Do you have a
wait,
full
really?
There's multiple Untold Legends games.
Oh man, well, I'm looking at my friend's resume. Literally, he just says Untold Legends.
All right,
That's
so
all I got.
Do we need a
You got it,
subheading
you
now?
got
All
it, I
right.
wanted
Hey,
to be-
well done. Good job.
Oh, Dark Horizon. That's it. I think that's it. Or Dark Kingdom, rather.
I actually really like this game, and I know it didn't get a fair shake.
I remember that. I remember
It
that
was
cover.
like the only Diablo-style game that existed in the early life of the PS3. The official name, by the way, for audio listeners is Untold Legends Dark Kingdom. Again, released in 2006. Hack and
So-
slash, 1 to 2 players online up to 4, so you could actually do local co-op as well.
Was that cheating for me to look up my friend's resume because I thought it was
I mean,
familiar?
You know, with
Unprecedented, no.
your position, I think we give you a pass on that one. You're okay.
Primary sources are allowed. Chat doesn't seem to like it. I don't know. Maybe it's a matter of opinion. I like that it had physics-powered combat. I thought that was kind of fun and unique for the time. Maybe novel would be a word I would use.
Important multiplayer.
Yeah, it was the only one you could really do if you want to play like a hack and slash online with your friends.
Mhm.
And it was around the launch window for PS3, so that kind of counts too, right?
Yeah. Why not? All right.
Anyway, count that as a win.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joe.
Well done, Joe. And
I didn't realize there were multiple Untold Legends games.
Yeah, it first came out on PSP, and then was eventually somehow landed here on the PS3.
Well, he was working on the PS3 version. He was one of the environment artists, so talented artist.
Mm.
But anyway,
Cool. All right. Well,
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen, we've reached the end of yet another episode of Roundtable Live. Thank you very much for watching. We really appreciate it. Joe Mirabello, thank you very much for joining us today as well. Where can they find your stuff on the internet?
well, there's actually I would love if you guys all went over to mothergunship.com.
Mhm,
There's a lot to see there about Mothergunship. There's dev blogs there that we're posting. We're going to post another one up on Monday about the crafting system, actually, as well as links to Facebook and Twitter and such. Also, if you go to the Steam page, you can actually wish list Mothergunship right now, which is very handy because Valve looks at wish lists for important metrics and stuff, even if the game's not going to be coming out for a while yet. So please do wish list the game on Steam. I would be very grateful. So yeah, those are the two big things. You can also follow Mothergunship at Twitter if you'd like.
Mhm.
And I think those are the links that my colleagues wanted me to spit out. So yeah.
Awesome. You've met your quota. Well done.
I did, but thank you very much for having me. This was a blast, and,
Yeah.
and mothergunship.com.
Hell yeah. That was great. Yeah, thank you very much, Joe. It was a great show. Appreciate you being here.
thanks a lot.
And thank you all for being here as well, for joining us, for watching here on twitch.tv/Roundtable Podcast, which is where you can find us every single Friday from 3 o'clock to about 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. You can follow our show here, of course, on Twitch. And you can follow us on Twitter at RoundtablePC to be notified when we go live over there as well. You can watch the show VOD either here on Twitch if you're a subscriber, or you can watch it for free over on our YouTube channels. That's BaerTaffy, Rockley Smile, and Mathis Games. And you can go to the show discussion subreddit, that is roundtablepodcast.reddit.com, if you have any comments or questions or concerns about the show. Quick note for the audio listeners, I'm aware of the fact that the file format is causing some confusion and some issues, so I'm still working on that actively, trying to fix all the little problems with that. So bear in mind those.
Bear in mind.
Yeah, all right. I said it.
You did it. You made the joke.
Yay.
You tried to stop yourself, and it was too late.
Yeah. You did it to yourself. Oh, Box Tomo.
Hey.
Tomo!
And you can go over to patreon.com/roundtable. Hey, we're at $999 on Patreon.
What?
Thank you all very much. That's awesome. Thank you very much for the newfound support over there on the page. We really appreciate it. Those of you who are pledging anywhere from $1 to $20 to $40 a month, thank you all very much for your support. We want to especially thank those of you pledging at that $20 tier and above, which include Julian Avelsgaard, Jonathan Graham, John Kalchik, Scrotty119, Thomas Games BR, Jakar Sampson with a dance number, Kolnar, Sahoa, Jamie Tinsley, Joseph Boss, Penn Gillette, Michael Bush Larson, Talks to Wall, TJ Majesty, Chaos, sponsored by Toast Hat Theorist, Colby Klein, Greenlight, Oren Saltzman, Christopher Flagg, Eric Schooley, Brizzle Rip, Positron, Myth Scarab, Mediocrities, Justin, Smurfette, and Logan Ray. Thank you guys so much for your continued support over on Patreon. Really, really appreciate that, and thank you all very much for watching this episode of Roundtable. We'll be back next week, same time, same place here on the channel. Thank you for being here, and we will see you then. Goodbye.
Goodbye.